committed to this peace, and together, Mr. President, we will achieve this peace. We've done it before. We've done it before in the Abraham Accords, and we'll do it again. Mr. President, today the Jewish calendar marks the end of 2 years of war. That war began on October 7th, on the Jewish festival of Simchat Torah. You always tell me, and you tell the world, remember October 7th. Mr. President, we remember. We remember the thousands of Hamas terrorists who stormed into our towns and kibbutzim. We remember the 1,200 people Hamas savagely slaughtered in cold blood, including dozens and dozens of Americans. We remember entire families burnt alive as they embraced each other. We remember the beautiful young Israelis brutally gunned down at the Nova Music Festival. We remember the hundreds of our citizens who were dragged into the dungeons of Gaza, including 12 Americans, men and women, young and old, babies and elderly Holocaust survivors. My friends, Mr. President, Donald, these monsters take babies as hostages. In response to this barbaric attack on October 7th, Israel did what it had to do. With indomitable courage, we set out to defend our people, to defeat our enemies, and to release our hostages. Our heroic soldiers fought like lions. They fought on the front lines of civilization and barbarism. Israel achieved amazing victories over Hamas and the entire Iran terror axis. Sinwar, Dev, Hania, Nasrallah, Assad, they're all gone. Iran's nuclear weapons and ballistic missile program, with your enormous help, Mr. President, rolled back. Half the Houthi leadership wiped out. But the price of this victory, the price of these victories, has been heavy. Nearly 2,000 of Israel's finest were lost, nearly half in battle. They left behind parents, spouses, siblings, and children. Their love and laughter, their promise and potential were lost forever. To the families of our fallen fighters, many of them are here, I say, I know the depth of your pain. I know the inconsolable grief that will accompany you for the rest of your lives. The state of Israel bows its head in eternal gratitude to our fallen heroes. Because of these heroes, our nation will survive. Because of these heroes, our nations will thrive. And because of these heroes, our nation will have peace. Mr. President, thousands of our brave soldiers were also wounded, suffering terrible blows to body and soul. Brave soldiers like Ari Spitz. Ari is an American. Ari is an American Israeli who was injured Ari is an American-Israeli who was injured in Gaza while searching for Hamas terrorists and weapons. 2 of Ari's comrades were killed in this action, and 10 were injured. Ari was presumed dead, but made a miraculous recovery despite losing 3 limbs. Ari, stand up for a minute alone. Stand up. There you go. There. Ari, you are the spirit of Joshua. You are the spirit of David. You are the spirit of the Maccabees. You are the spirit of Israel. I salute you. We all salute you. Sabine Tassa of Kibbutz Netiv HaAsara is watching us today from the Israeli consulate in Los Angeles. Sabine lost her husband and her oldest son on October 7th. She is the mother of 3 other boys. 2 of them, Koren and Shai, witnessed their father jump on a Hamas grenade to save his 2 sons. We all saw the film of those 2 boys crying out in pain, "Father is dead. Why? Why did God save me?" Mr. President, my friend Donald, I've seen some very tough things in my life. But I couldn't bring myself to watch those boys suffering again. So I didn't see this film except once. Yet Sabine, their mother, has had the strength and fortitude to show this film across the world. And my wife Sarah and I asked her, "Sabine, how do you do it? Why do you do it?" And she answered, "I do it to show the entire world the monsters Israel is fighting and the justice of our cause." This is what she's doing once again in Los Angeles. Sabine, you can hear me now, so I want to tell you on behalf of all of us, you embody the spirit of our biblical heroines, Deborah, Ruth, and Esther. You too are the spirit of Israel, and we all salute you. Mr. President, you asked me on our many conversations during the 12-day war with Iran, you asked me, how are the people holding up? And I said to you, our people are strong. Israelis are a nation of lions with unlimited resolve to defend our country and secure our future. The people give strength to our soldiers, and the people give strength to me and to my colleagues. The Jewish people have risen from the ashes time and again, but when we formed the State of Israel and the Army of Israel, we pledged never again would be defenseless against our enemies. And that resolute strength not only assures our survival, it assures our future, it assures peace. We have paid a high price for this war, but our enemies now understand just how powerful and just how determined Israel is. They understand that attacking Israel on October 7th was a catastrophic mistake. They understand that Israel is strong and that Israel is here to stay. And this, Mr. President, is the indispensable foundation of peace. Peace through strength. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a momentous day, a day of great joy as the remaining hostages come home. My wife Sarah and I have met with the hostage families many times. There were no words to describe their agony, only tears of bottomless sorrow and unimaginable pain. At the beginning of the war, I promised to bring all the hostages home. Today, with the indispensable help, the determined and focused help, the unremitting help of President Trump and his team, and with the incredible sacrifice and courage of the soldiers of Israel, we are fulfilling that promise. It has been a long journey to get here. In the first week of the war, our brave soldiers put military pressure on Hamas, and the international community put diplomatic pressure on them. This enabled us to secure the release of over 100 hostages. In heroic rescue attempts behind enemy lines, Israel's special forces rescued 8 live hostages and brought back the remains of dozens more. But as time went on, we all know what happened. The diplomatic pressure was turned on its head. More and more governments bought into Hamas's false propaganda. More and more governments succumbed to anti-Semitic mobs in their own countries. They just turned on Israel. They called for us to surrender to Hamas demands, just leave Gaza immediately, they said, end the war without committing to disarm Hamas, without committing to demilitarize Gaza. Had Israel succumbed to those demands, not only would Sinwar, Nasrallah, Assad, and Iran's missile and nuclear program remain intact. Not only that, because in no time, the Hamas killers would be back on the border fence, ready to repeat the horrors of October 7th again and again, as they vowed to do. But just at that point of maximum pressure on Israel, a man named Donald J. Trump was elected President of the United States. And ladies and gentlemen, overnight, everything changed. Everything.
We felt it right here.
Mr. President, thanks to your unequivocal backing of Israel, we secured a second hostage deal within weeks of your election. And in the months that followed, we worked closely together to forge a path to bring the remaining hostages home and end the war. End the war in a way that ensures the disarming of Hamas, the demilitarization of Gaza, and that Gaza would never again pose a threat to Israel. 2 months ago, you fully backed my decision to send the IDF into the last Hamas stronghold in Gaza City. You shared my view that this military pressure would help free the hostages. And despite all the criticism, all the naysayers, we were right. Hamas caved in. And 2 weeks ago, you succeeded in doing something miraculous. You succeeded in doing something that no one believed was possible. You brought most of the Arab world, you brought most of the world behind your proposal to free the hostages and end the war. I want to thank Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Ron Dermer for their great contribution to this effort. And I want to thank our negotiating team. I believe that the close cooperation between the two of us, between our two nations, combining Israel's military pressure and President Trump's unmatched global leadership. I have to tell you, I've seen a lot of American presidents. I've seen them all in the time that I've been here, and I've been here quite a lot of time. I've never seen anyone move the world so quickly, so decisively, so resolutely as our friend President Donald J. Trump. With our military pressure and President Trump's global leadership, we achieved this historic moment. It's a moment of indescribable joy as our nation embraces our sons who are coming home. Mr. President, this week, Jews around the world are going to read the book of Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, in the Bible. The Bible has many miraculous moments. One of them was your decision to bomb Fordo. I think it was a pivot of history because it wasn't meant only to bomb Fordo. That action and your previous action of taking out Qasem Soleimani, the architect of death, I think that changed the balance of power in the world. You brought America back again to the driver's seat. Now, I said that we're going to read this week the book of Ecclesiastes. It's not a book of action. It's a book of meditations, of thought, a perspective on life and on death. And in this book, we read the immortal words of King Solomon. To everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. Et milchama ve'et shalom. A time for peace and a time for war. The last 2 years have been a time of war. The coming years will hopefully be a time for peace. Peace inside Israel and peace outside Israel. I look forward to continuing marching with you on the path we paved together with the Abraham Accords. Under your leadership, we can forge new peace treaties with Arab countries in the region and Muslim countries beyond the region. Abraham's children will work together to build a better future, a future that will unite civilization against barbarism, light against darkness, and hope against despair. And my friends, I believe that with President Trump's leadership, this will happen a lot faster than people think. As Prime Minister of Israel, I extend my hand to hold those who seek peace with us. No one wants peace more than the people of Israel. Israel will always remain vigilant in defending itself, and Israel will always remain full of hope. Hope is our national anthem. Hope is our creed. Hope is our strength. It is time, my friends, to realize that hope and expand the circle of peace. Mr. President, thank you for all you have done for us. I have submitted your nomination to be the first non-Israeli recipient of the Israel Prize, Israel's highest award. As to that other prize, just a question of time, you'll get it. but I want you to get the Israel Prize, our highest award, to our greatest friend. When others were weak, you were strong. When others were fearful, you were bold. When others abandoned us, you stood by our side. On behalf of the government and people of Israel, I thank you for your extraordinary friendship. Thank you for helping bring our hostages home. Thank you for supporting Israel's march to victory. Thank you for paving a path to peace. מכובדי נשיא ארצות הברית, ידידי דונלד, ברוך הבא לישראל, ברוך הבא לירושלים, ברוך הבא ביום המרגש הזה, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. May God bless you and your family, Mr. President. May God bless America. May God bless Israel. And may God bless the covenant between our two promised lands. Thank you, Mr. President. But you'll get it in the morning. Thank you.
Mr. President. Where? Come on up, opposition. Come on, opposition. Yeah.
Okay. אני מתכבד להזמין כעת את ראש האופוזיציה, חבר הכנסת יאיר לפיד.
Mr. Speaker, members of Knesset, ministers, President Herzog, Prime Minister Netanyahu, distinguished guests, Your Excellency, President Trump. For 2 years, we waited for this moment. 2 years of sleepless nights, 2 years without air in our lungs. Our eyes are filled with tears today. Our hearts are filled with gratitude. Our children are coming home. In the Babylonian Talmud, a sacred book of the Jewish people, it is written, whoever destroys one life, it is as though he destroyed an entire world, and whoever saves one life, it is though as he has saved an entire world. Mr. President, you have saved the lives of our hostages. But you saved so much more. You have saved the souls of the bereaved whose loved ones now will be brought home for burial. You have saved thousands of soldiers who will now not fall in battle. And you have saved millions from the horrors of war. You have saved more than one life, and each life is an entire world. This is a historic moment and a reminder that history is shaped by people. It is shaped by those who know the past but have the vision to change the future. When you were elected, you declared that you would be the president of peace. You have kept your word. The fact that you were not awarded the Nobel Peace Prize is a grave mistake by the committee. But they will have no choice, Mr. President. They will have to award it to you next year. Peace will not come by waiting. It will come by building, by reaching out, and by daring once again to believe. You, Mr. President, have done the unimaginable. We will be eternally grateful. But we also need to take responsibility. The destiny of Israel will always be written by the people of Israel. We must now prove ourselves worthy of what has been achieved. From its founding, Israel has said to the world that our strength, our power, rest upon our values. Israel is the strongest country in the Middle East because we are the only democracy in the Middle East. Because we believe in the principles laid in our Declaration of Independence, which says Israel will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. It will safeguard the holy places for all religions. Those are our values. That is who we are as people, as a country. Our neighbors must understand one more thing about us. We are not going anywhere. The Middle East is our home. We are here to stay. Our story did not end in the Bible. It began there. It continues in our laboratories and universities, in our innovation hubs. Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and the Houthis, they all read the wrong intelligence reports. The real intelligence report on Israel's intentions is found in the book of Genesis. And I will give you and your descendants after you the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession. We call upon the nations of the Islamic world and all our neighbors, Saudi Arabia, Syria, others. We are here to stay. We can do great things together. Come and talk to us. Mr. President, you are the one who can make it happen as you did with the historic Abraham Accords. Then too, no one believed it was possible. Then too, you imposed your vision on everyone. While others spoke of difficulties, you created opportunity. You can be the one to bring the next wave of peace. The people of Israel support this. They want this. We are ready. And you can later today in Egypt with your unbelievably talented team, my friends Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, forge a regional alliance that will change not only the Middle East, but the entire world. After 2 years of war, the peoples of this region should look around and ask themselves, whose situation is better? Those who chose the path of peace or those who chose the path of war? Those who invested in their people, in the education of their children, in science and education and technology, or those who invested in hate and in violence? From here, I say to all those who demonstrated against Israel these past 2 years, on the streets of London and Rome, in Paris and in Columbia University. I do not represent the government. As you know, I am the leader of the opposition. And I tell you, then, you were deceived. You were deceived. Propaganda experts, funded by terror money, manipulated you. Now that the war has stopped, you have time and a chance to go and learn the facts. The truth is, there was no genocide, no intentional starvation. The truth is, there was an army and a country fighting in the most complicated conditions imaginable against terrorists who send their own children to die for a follow-up, who use their own children as human shields.
And right now we're watching the Israeli Knesset, the parliament in Jerusalem. The opposition leader Yair Lapid is speaking with pretty much the same tone as the other leader, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, both praising President Trump for this historic day, the 20 hostages released. We, of course, await President Trump to speak soon.
That's it. Yair Lapid just here saying this deal ushers in a new era where the assets and the people of Israel are protected, the education, the faith, and just really heaping praise on President Trump. As you mentioned, Prime Minister Netanyahu did also. We also have heard this morning that Prime Minister Netanyahu, though he was invited to Egypt with Trump, who will be going there after this, he will not be attending due to a holiday in Israel that will be happening soon. So let's tune back into this speech.
October memorial ceremony. An inspirational woman called Galit Dan spoke on stage. Galit had a daughter, Noya, a 13-year-old girl who was autistic like my daughter. And Noya was full of light. She loved Harry Potter. On that dark day, Noya was sleeping at her grandmother's, Carmela's house in Kibbutz Nir Oz. Carmela was 80 years old. Their bodies, grandmother and granddaughter, were found embraced. They were murdered together. On stage at the ceremony, Galit said a sentence that moved us all. We don't want revenge, she said. We want redemption. Today, the redemption begins. Israel has endured 2 terrible years on the battlefield and in the international arena. But in those 2 years, we also rediscovered our own greatness. We remember how good we can be. Our pilots who took control of the skies over Iran, our industries leading the world in technology, our civil society, which reached out to help every victim of the war. We will move forward toward a different future. Our heroic soldiers who saved us all will fold away their uniforms and rise as teachers and engineers, scientists and innovators, investors and small business owners. We will never be able to repay the debt to those who sacrificed everything these past years, to those who, as President Lincoln said, gave the last full measure of devotion. We can only be worthy of them, worthy of their sacrifice. Mr. President, allow me to speak also to the businessman in you, the deal maker who understands value. If there were one stock in the world I would invest in today, it is the state of Israel. If there were one nation that deserves unrestricted access to GPU chips, to AI and SMR technologies, to American markets, it is the state of Israel. Israel's future is intertwined with our eternal alliance, our strategic and moral covenant with our greatest friends, the United States of America. This war is over. We will always need to stay vigilant, to guard against those who seek our destruction. But the state of Israel is about to reinvent itself. The challenges ahead demand not only strength, but a new vision. It's time to take a new path, to be a nation that is advanced and thriving and peace-seeking. We have waited for this moment, for the end of the war, for the return of the hostages, for the chance to rechannel our grief and loss into the energy needed to rebuild our nation. Thanks to you, Mr. President. Thanks to our soldiers, our lions. Thanks to the millions of great Israeli patriots who filled the streets and the square and never, not for one moment, gave up on the hostages. Thanks to all of them, the strength within us can now rise, succeed, and build for our future and for our children. Thank you very much. God bless the United States of America. Am Israel Chai.
אני מודה לראש האופוזיציה, ועכשיו, members of the Knesset, it is now my distinct honor to invite the President of the United States of America, His Excellency Donald J. Trump, to address the Knesset.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. It's a great honor. Nice place. Very nice place. Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, esteemed members of the Knesset, and cherished citizens of Israel, we gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity. This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death, and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. I want to express my gratitude to a man of exceptional courage and patriotism, whose partnership did so much to make this momentous day possible. You know who I'm talking about. There's only one, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Bibi, please stand up. And he is not easy, I want to tell you. He's not the easiest guy to deal with, but that's what makes him great. That's what makes him great. Thank you very much, baby. Great job. And let me also convey my tremendous appreciation for all of the nations of the Arab and Muslim world that came together to press Hamas to set the hostages free and to send them home. We had a lot of help. We had a lot of help from a lot of people that you wouldn't suspect, and I want to thank them very much for that. It's an incredible triumph for Israel and the world to have all of these nations working together as partners in peace. And it's pretty unusual for you to see that, but it happened in this case. This was a very unusual point in time, a brilliant point in time. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. It's going to work together. I'd like to thank several great American patriots for their invaluable help in getting something done that almost everyone thought was absolutely impossible. We were wasting our time. So many people said, "You're just wasting your time." But we weren't, because we had talented people working with us, and we had people that loved your country, and frankly, people that loved the region. They loved the Middle East. I want to thank my friend Steve Witkoff. You know, Steve was chosen by me. He never did this before, but I knew him as a few things. He was a great businessman, but I know a lot of great businessmen, to be honest with you. He had tremendous negotiating skills, but I know a lot of people that negotiate pretty well, although it is an art. But there are people that can negotiate pretty well. But most importantly with Steve, he's just a great guy. Everybody loved him. Everybody. I mean, I know some negotiators that are so good, but you wouldn't have had peace in the Middle East. It would be in World War III right now with some of these guys. Everybody loves Steve, and they respect him, and they somehow can relate to him. I've known him for many years, and I've seen it over and over again.
להוציא את חבר הכנסת עודה, להוציא אותו מהאולם, להוציא אותו מיד, החוצה, החוצה, החוצה. להוציא גם את חבר הכנסת כסיף, להוציא את חבר הכנסת כסיף מהאולם, להוציא אותם מיד. Sorry for that, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Please.
That was very efficient. So back to Steve. He's But I tell one story because he was so involved, and then we called in Jared. We need that brain on occasion. We got to get Jared in here. We got to get a certain group of people. But Steve started this all by himself. I call him Henry Kissinger, who doesn't leak, okay? Henry is a big leaker. He leaked Steve doesn't leak. Steve just wants to get the job done. He wants to do what's right. But I'll give you just a quick story because, as you know, he's working on the war with Russia and Ukraine, a war that would have never happened if I were president. A shame. 7,000 young soldiers a week are being killed. More than that this last week. It's a shame. Should have never happened. But it did happen, and we won the race, and I took over this horrible war that's been raging, and I thought it would be easily settled. I thought it was a hell of a lot easier than doing what we just did very successfully with Israel and a lot of other people. But this came first, and we'll get that one. But I set up a meeting for him to meet with President Putin, thinking it would be a 15 or a 20-minute meeting. Steve had no idea about Russia, had no idea about Putin too much, didn't know too much about politics, wasn't that interested. He was really good at real estate, but he had that quality that I was looking for, and I didn't see it around in too many ways. And I set up the meeting with Putin, and I called. I said, is Steve finished yet? That was about a half an hour into the meeting. No, sir, he's not. He's still inside. This is in Moscow. I said, well, how's he doing? I don't know, sir. He's still inside. I called up an hour later. Let me speak to Steve. Sir, he's still with Putin. He's with President Putin. I said, wow, that's a long meeting, 1 hour. I called up an hour later, he was still with Putin. 3 hours later, he was still with Putin. 4 hours later, he started to get the word that he was going to be coming out soon. And in 5 hours, he came out. I said, what the hell were you talking about for 5 hours? And he says, just a lot of interesting things. We're talking about a lot of interesting things, including what he went in there for, but you can't talk about it for 5. You can talk about it for a certain period of time, and you know what you're getting. But that's a talent. That's a talent, where you can do that. Most people I'd send in, number one, they wouldn't be accepted. Number two, if they were, the meeting would last 5 minutes, and that's what happens with Steve. Everybody loves him. They love him on this side. They love him on the other side. And he really is. He's a great negotiator because he's a great guy. So thank you very much, Steve, very much. And let me also give a very special thanks to someone who truly loves Israel. In fact, loves it so much that my daughter converted. My daughter converted. I didn't know this was going to happen. And Ivanka's here. And Bibi, you do know this was not in the cards for me. You understand that. And she is so happy, and they are so happy. At least I think they're happy. If they're not, we have a big story, right? No, they have a great marriage, and they get along great. They're best friends. They have a very special relationship. But Jared has been so helpful. He really did something very special. He established the Abraham Accords with a group of very wonderful people. I like calling it the Avraham Accords because people that, right? Avraham. It's so cool. It's so much sort of nicer, you know, the Abraham versus the Avraham. I just don't want to sound too sanctimonious when I do it, so, you know, I sort of split it up. This way we keep everybody happy. But we have some very great talent, and they have no excuses for anything that's taken place because we had some unbelievably good people working on this. And then you're going to add a man named Marco Rubio, who is also here. That's right. And I have a prediction that Marco will go down, I mean this, as the greatest Secretary of State in the history of the United States. I believe that. I believe it. And he and I, we really fought it out. You remember, he was tough. He was nasty. Who the hell thought this was going to happen, Marco, right? And now I'm saying he's going to go down as the greatest. He will. He was always smart and sharp, and people respect him. And then we have somebody who's young, but an unbelievable leader. I saw it a long time ago, and he's turned out to be even better than we thought. Right, Susie? I think even better. And that's Pete Hegseth, who is our Secretary of War, formerly Secretary of Defense. And as you know, we decisively won World War I. We decisively won World War II decisively. And everything in between and everything before it, we won everything. And then they had the brilliant idea of changing the name from war, it was war, to defense. And with that went a certain thinking. And we fought in a very politically correct way after that. We always had the strongest military, and now we have a stronger military than we've ever had before. Because of my first term, I've totally rebuilt the military, every aspect of it. But we have, if you think, we settled 8 wars in 8 months. I'm now including this one, by the way, if that's okay. They may say, well, that was quick. Because yesterday I was saying 7, but now I can say 8. The hostages are back. The hostages are back. It is a good feeling. Isn't that nice to say? I just said the hostage. First time I said the hostages are back. It feels so good to say it. But when you settle 8 wars in 8 months, that means you don't like war. Everyone thought I was going to be brutal. In fact, I remember Hillary Clinton during a debate, she said, look at him. He's going to go to war with everybody. And actually, she said, he's got a personality that's all about war. No, and my personality actually is all about stopping wars. And it seems to work. It seems to work. But it also means this name change and our attitude that we're not going to go into a war. But if we do, we're going to win that war like nobody has ever won a war before. We will not be politically correct, but we're not going to be there. And I think, as you mentioned, Bibi, before, peace through strength. And that's what it's all about. The United States has the greatest and most powerful military in the, right now, history of the world. I can tell you we have weapons that nobody's ever dreamt of. I only hope we never have to use them. I rebuilt the military. I was proud to do it, but some of the things I hated to do. I hated certain of the weapons because the level of power is so enormous. It's so dangerous, so bad. But we have to do what we have to do. We make the best weapons in the world, and we've got a lot of them. And we've given a lot to Israel, frankly. And I mean, Bibi would call me so many times, can you get me this weapon, that weapon, that weapon? Some of them I never heard of, Bibi, and I made them. But we'd get them here, wouldn't we? And they are the best. They are the best. And But you used them well. It also takes people that know how to use them, and you obviously used them very well. But so many that Israel became strong and powerful, which ultimately led to peace. That's what led to peace. So as we celebrate today, let us remember how this nightmare of depravity and death all began. 2 years ago, on the eve of the Simchat Torah holiday, thousands of innocent Israeli civilians were attacked by terrorists, and one of the most evil and heinous desecrations of innocent life the world has ever seen, the worst slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. The cruelty of October 7th struck to the core of humanity itself. Nobody could believe what they were witnessing. The United States of America grieved alongside you, and we mourned for our own citizens who were so viciously taken that day. And to all the families whose lives were forever changed by the atrocities of that day, and all of the people of Israel, please know that America joins you in those two everlasting vows: never forget and never again. From October 7th until this week, Israel has been a nation at war, enduring burdens that only a proud and faithful people could withstand. It was a very tough period of time. For so many families across this land, it has been years since you've known a single day of true peace. But now at last, not only for Israelis, but also for Palestinians and for many others, the long and painful nightmare is finally over. And as the dust settles, the smoke fades, the debris is removed, and the ashes cleaned from the air, the day that breaks on a region transformed, and a beautiful and much brighter future appears suddenly within your reach. This is now a very exciting time for Israel and for the entire Middle East, because all across the Middle East, the forces of chaos, terror, and ruin that have plagued the region for decades now stand weakened, isolated, and totally defeated. A new coalition of proud and responsible nations is emerging, and because of us, the enemies of all civilization are in retreat. Thanks to the bravery and incredible skill of the Israeli Defense Forces and Operation Rising Lion, That's central casting. Let's put him in a movie. Look at him. Great job. And my people loved working with you. Loved it. They worked so well together. But many of Iran's top terrorists, including nuclear scientists and commanders, have been extinguished from this earth. And with Operation Midnight Hammer, boy, that's a great name for that, what we did last June. The United States military flew 7 of those beautiful B-2 bombers. They look so beautiful all of a sudden. They were always, I thought they were pretty planes. I had no idea they could do what they did. In fact, we just ordered 28 more of them. A little updated version. We ordered a whole pile of them. And almost 100 other planes went with them, including fighter jets. And we had 52 tankers, big, beautiful, brand new tankers that were loading them up 4 or 5 times. They've traveled 37 hours back and forth, think of that. But we had tankers all over the sky for all the other planes. We had the F-22s, the F-35s, F-16s. We had a hell of a lot of planes. So we had 52 gas stations in the sky. That's what they call them. I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to be flying one of them. We have our great General Raisin Cain right here. General, stand up. This guy, what a general. Thank you. I asked General Cain, I said, you know, we're having problems with ISIS, and I was in Washington, and I asked, how long would it take to defeat ISIS? And my Washington generals told me, 3, 4, maybe 5 years, sir. I said, I don't get it. We got the best equipment in the world. Why? So I flew to Iraq, and I met with a man named Cain. He said, what's your first name? He said, they call me Raisin, sir. I said, wait a minute, your name is Raisin Cain? I've been looking for you for a long time. You gotta be kidding. So they told me 3, 4, 5 years to defeat ISIS. And I sit down with him and I say, why is it? I flew there in the dark of night. I landed, I'll never forget it. It was quite a trip. I'm glad I made it because I met him. I said, could I ask you, General? I come down. He's standing with another general and a sergeant. Everybody was like central casting. They could go into a movie right now. Between him and you guys over here, we could get rich making movies, okay? And they got along so great. That's the beautiful thing, that your military and our military, Bibi, got along so great. But I was told by the television generals in Washington, we have the best equipment in the world. Why is it taking so long? And they said, 4 years. I said, so let me ask you, Raisin, how long would it take you to defeat ISIS? Sir, we can do it in 3 weeks, but you'll probably have some time left over. I said, you gotta be kidding. What the hell are you talking about? They said 4 years. I said, well, sir, look, it's not my place to say, but you're asking me the question. What you have to do is you hit him from the west, you hit him from the north, you hit him from the south, you hit him above, you hit him below. I said, so why didn't they do it? And he didn't want to speak badly of his superiors, which is hard to believe they were his superiors. Should have been the other way around a long time ago, because he's the one that did Operation Hammer. It was flawless. It was flawless. It was absolutely flawless. And I said, so you really think you can do it in 4 weeks? Yes, sir, 100%. You have to do it differently than they were doing it. They were using one base, and it was hundreds of miles away. And he says, we have all these portable bases all over the Middle East. And they didn't want to use them because they didn't want to offend the country where the portable, they wouldn't have even known what the hell the planes were going up, right? They wouldn't have known, but he said, no, they didn't want to defend anybody, offend anybody, and but we can do it in 4 weeks. I said, you sure about that? I'm going to call you back. I'll call you back on Monday. I'm going back to Washington. But you think 4 weeks? Yes, sir, I think we can do it in 4 weeks. We'll have time left over. So I call him on Monday. I said, you think you can do it? 4 weeks. I said, go ahead and do it. He did it. I'll tell you, he did it in 4 weeks, less than 4 weeks. So, General, stand up, please. Again, this is a real general. This is not a television general. He doesn't want to go on television. He doesn't want to go on television. I said the other guys love being on television. So we dropped 14 bombs on Iran's key nuclear facilities, totally, as I said originally, obliterating them. And that's been confirmed, and everybody understands it. Together we stopped the #1 state sponsor of terror from obtaining the world's most dangerous weapons. And if you think about it, if we didn't do that, and assuming we made the same deal that we have today, there'd be a dark cloud over this deal. And #1, it wouldn't happen because the other Arab and Muslim nations really wouldn't feel comfortable making the deal that we have now, right? if Iran had that nuclear weapon that they were about 2 months away from having. They would have had it in 2 months or maybe less than that. They were right at, this was our last shot. They looked at it for 22 years. This was our last shot. The pilots told me that. They said, 22 years, sir. They looked at it. Our predecessors looked, they studied it. 3 times a year would do drills on that exact attack. And boy, did they get it right. But let's assume they didn't, and let's assume there was large-scale nuclear weapons in the hands of Iran. We couldn't be here today. Even if we signed the deal, which we couldn't do because a lot of people would not want to have anything to do with it, we took a big cloud off of the Middle East and off of Israel. And it was my honor to help. But isn't it true, though, that can you imagine the same, let's assume, Bibi, the same documents, we had everything the same, but you had somebody out there that was, in the opinion of everybody, all-powerful in the Middle East. They took a big hit, didn't they? Didn't they take a big hit? Boy, oh boy. They got it from one side, from the other. And you know, it would be great if we could make a peace deal with them. And I think that's big. Would you be happy with that? Wouldn't it be nice, I think? Because I think they want to. I think they're tired. Somebody said, sir, they're starting their nuclear program again. I said, let me tell you something. They're not starting anything. They want to survive. The last thing they want to do is start digging holes again in mountains that just got blown up and start. They're not doing this. They want to survive, okay? But I think we have a chance. Steve, you, and I think Jared, come on, I'll call you back for another one. We always bring Jared when we want to get that deal closed. We bring Jared, but Steve, you and Jared and the General and Pete and Marco, you'll get that deal done easy. I think that'll be easy. But first we have to get Russia done. We got to get that one done. If you don't mind, Steve, let's focus on Russia first, all right? We'll get it done. In Lebanon, the dagger of Hezbollah, long aimed at Israel's throat, has been totally shattered. My administration is actively supporting the new president of Lebanon in his mission to permanently disarm Hezbollah's terror brigades. He's doing very well. And build a thriving state at peace with its neighbors. And you're very much in favor of that, I know. And it's good things are happening there, really good things. And with this week's ceasefire, we've achieved the most challenging breakthrough of them all. The most challenging breakthrough maybe ever. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I've been involved in a lot of success. I have never seen anything like what's going on today all over the world. People are dancing in the streets, not just in Israel. They're dancing in the streets of countries that would have never danced in the street about what's happening today. They're dancing in those streets. So this long and difficult war has now ended. You know, some people say 3,000 years, some people say 500 years, whatever it is. It's the granddaddy of them all. And in an unprecedented achievement, virtually the entire region has endorsed the plan that Gaza will be immediately demilitarized, that Hamas will be disarmed, and Israel's security will no longer be threatened in any way, shape, or form. So Israel, with our help, has won all that they can by force of arms. You've won. I mean, you've won. Now it's time to translate these victories against terrorists on the battlefield into the ultimate prize of peace and prosperity for the entire Middle East. It's about time you were able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Mr. Opposition Leader. I said he's a very nice opposition leader. I think... No, he's a nice man. Bibi, he's a nice man. Good. He knows what he's doing, right? No, a very nice guy. Well, see, now you can be a little bit nicer, Bibi, because you're not at war anymore, Bibi. But only by embracing the opportunities of this moment can we achieve our goal of ensuring that the horrors of recent years will never happen again. You don't want to have to go through this again. 8 years ago, I came to this region on a very special first trip abroad as the President of the United States. I came here very early at your request. I addressed the leaders of the Arab and Muslim world gathered in Saudi Arabia and said that it was time to build a future free of the grip of extremism and terror. And interestingly, right now, as soon as I'm finished, I'm quite late. You've kept me quite late between opposition leaders and Bibi's brilliant but very long speech. I thought I was going to run up here, make a speech, and then head to Egypt. It didn't work out, though. And you made a pretty long one, too, sir. But I liked what you all said. It could be worse. Supposing on top of it, I didn't like what you said. That would be no good, Ron, would it? Ron, you did a great job, by the way, Ron. Yeah. So I'm going to be meeting, actually, in a little while, I'm going to be meeting with the most powerful, the richest nations, really, in the world, although now, with the tariffs, the United States is by far the richest nation in the world, as you probably have been reading. But the richest nations, most powerful nations, tremendous, headed by some tremendous people in many cases. Some cases I wouldn't say necessarily I would endorse. But I will tell you, some incredible people that really helped us make this all possible. So I'll be going there. I'll be quite late. They might not be there by the time I get there. But we're going to give it a shot. But the journey we started back then led to the crushing defeat of the ISIS caliphate, to the monumental Abraham Accords, and ultimately to the historic ceasefire this week, in which many of those same nations really played a very pivotal role, I have to tell you. Steve will tell you that. Jared will tell you that. Together, we've shown that peace is not just a hope that we can dream about. It's a reality we can build upon day by day, person by person, and nation by nation. And because of that, the Middle East is finally ready to embrace its extraordinary potential. You have extraordinary potential in this region. It should now be clear to everyone throughout the region that decades of fomenting terrorism and extremism, jihadism and anti-Semitism have not worked. They haven't worked. They've been a disaster. They've just killed. They've killed. They've backfired completely and totally. They've just totally backfired. Everything that you thought, take it worst case, it's turned out to be worse than that. They have not worked. From Gaza to Iran, those bitter hatreds have delivered nothing but misery, suffering, failure, and death. They've served not to weaken Israel, but to annihilate the very forces that did the most to foment this hatred. And it's really, everybody that's tried it has become irrelevant. Meanwhile, we've seen those nations that set aside their differences, reached across ancient divides, and pursued engagement are now among the most successful in the region. They're getting along with Israel, and they're doing great. And I can tell you the 4 nations that joined the Abraham Accords early on, and you'd all be doing me a favor, and I'm going to be saying this in a little while to some other friends, would love you all to, is this right, Jared? Join up in the Abraham Accords. We have to join up and get together. You can have that whole thing filled out. We had a very weak administration, worst president in the history of our country by far. And Barack Obama was not far behind, by the way. And they did nothing with this incredible document, the Abraham Accords, but now you can fill them up. Now you have peace, you have people that really like Israel. I'll tell you what, and they like Israel a lot more today than they did even 5 weeks ago. You've made a lot of, you've come back. You've come back strong because it was getting to be a little nasty out there in the world, and ultimately the world wins. You can't beat the world. Or I would say to Bibi, it's now time, and he understood it better than anybody, because ultimately, you know, the world's a very big place. And I've said a lot. I said, this piece of land is very small. It's unbelievable what you've done with that tiny, you look at a map even of just, not the world, the Middle East, and you have this little dot. And think of what you've done. It's incredible. It's incredible. But the world is loving Israel again. And I said to Bibi, you know, the world is big and it's strong. And Ron, ultimately, the world wins. And we don't have to worry about that now. But there was getting to be a period of time over the last few months, you know, the world wanted peace and Israel wanted peace. Everybody did. Everybody did. And what a victory it's been, right? What a victory it's been. If you would have gone on for 3, 4 more years, keep fighting, it was getting bad. It was getting heated. The timing of this is brilliant. And I said, Bibi, you're going to be remembered for this far more than if you kept this thing going, kill. It would be it would not be the same. And I just want to congratulate you for having the courage to say, that's it, we've won. And now let's enjoy our lives and let's rebuild Israel and make it stronger and bigger and better than it's ever been before. We're going to do that. Took a lot of guts. And the choice for Palestinians could not be more clear. This is their chance to turn forever from the path of terror and violence. It's been extreme, to exile the wicked forces of hate that are in their midst, and I think that's going to happen. I've met some people over the last couple of months that want to see it happen very much, and after tremendous pain and death and hardship, now is the time to concentrate on building their people up instead of trying to tear Israel down. We don't want that to happen again. And the total focus of Gazans must be on restoring the fundamentals of stability, safety, dignity, and economic development so they can finally have the better life that their children really do deserve after all these decades of horror. I intend to be a partner in this effort in the sense that we're going to help and we're going to do something that became unbelievably popular. Everybody wants to be on it. It's called the Board of Peace, okay? How about that? Is that a beautiful name? Like a board of peace. The only bad thing from my standpoint, every single nation involved has asked me to be the chair, and I'll tell you, I'm very busy. I didn't count on that, but you know what? If we do it, we'll do it right, and we have unbelievable power and wealth. Because you're going to need wealth. You're going to need wealth to rebuild things. And they have wealth like few people have wealth. I want to thank the Arab and Muslim nations for their commitment that they've made to support a safe rebuilding of Gaza and beyond. I have many Arab countries, very wealthy countries, that came up and said, we'll put up tremendous amounts of money to get rebuild Gaza, and I think that's going to happen. The power, they want dignity, they want to come forward, and they want to say, and I want to say who they are, because what they're doing is going to be, I think, something that you're going to be very impressed with, Bibi, and you need that. You need the kind of economic power that they have, and they want to see it work, and they want to see it be safe, and they want to see it be good for Israel, too. And as much money as it will be, and it's a lot, as you can see, it's a lot, For these countries, it's relatively little relative to their worth. It's really a lot of money like most people could never even conceive, but for these countries, it's not that much, especially because it ensures success and stability in the Middle East, which is what they want to see. So many of them will be with us in Egypt in a little while, I think. I'm not sure. They may be gone. They may have taken their Boeing 747s and left. I said, what kind of a plane do you fly? 747. I said, that's a large plane. No, they may have. Steve, do you think they've left on their their brand new Boeing 747s? Or I don't know. We're going to find out soon. It's going to be a big story. There'll be 2 people left, and they'll be the 2 poorest ones. But it will be the wealthiest and most powerful group of nations. So the group that we have assembled, that's waiting for us, is the wealthiest and most powerful group ever assembled at one time. There has never been a group like this. And they're only looking for good. They want good. They're going to do good. And as those commitments are made, I'm going to let the world know who's doing it, because they really deserve to get the credit. And some of them probably won't want the credit, but they deserve it. It's more obvious than ever that the productive and responsible nations of this region should not be enemies or adversaries. You should be partners and eventually even friends, and that's what's going to happen. I know it. Together you can stand against the forces of chaos. Yeah, you go ahead. That's an important point. Because you can stand against the forces of chaos that threatened all of your interests, and it's always a big threat, and unleash incredible prosperity and opportunity for all the people of these lands, and that's what's going to happen. You're going to unleash numbers and success, the likes of which Israel has never been able to think of, because you're so firm, and you should be, and you've done the right thing in defending yourself. You're not going to have to worry so much about it. You've won, and now you can build, and you can do things that you never even thought possible. When you put that genius into doing something else, it's going to be something it's going to be a miracle. The miracle in the desert, it's going to be amazing. And it already is in a true sense. But it'll be wonderful when you can spend time thinking about other than war and defense and offense also. To that end, it's my firm hope and dream, frankly, that together the Abraham Accords will turn out to be everything that we thought they would. Those 4 countries were very, very brave in doing it. They did it at a very early point, and every single one of them benefits unbelievably financially. And if you noticed, even in this bad period that we just went through, they all remained a member of the Abraham Accords. They've done unbelievably well. And you know who you are, and I want to thank you. And they've stayed because of loyalty, but they've also stayed because it was really good business. They've made a lot of money being members, and you're going to all, I hope that every one of the countries that we're seeking, Jared, I hope they join quickly. No games, no nothing. Just join, get it. It's going to be a great peacemaker. It's really going to bring it together beyond anybody's wildest dream. So instead of building fortresses to keep enemies at bay, the nations of this region should be building infrastructure to weave your commerce closer together, because you've got to compete with the big world out there in commerce now. It's a different kind of competition. Instead of making weapons and missiles, the wealth of this region should flow to schools and medicine, industry, and frankly, the new hot thing, artificial intelligence. It's a lot of intelligence you're going to have to be thrown off to pay back these sums of money that they're doing. But that's really the hot one. And I might say that the United States, a year ago, was a dead country. I say it to people. I heard it first from the King of Saudi Arabia. I then heard it from UAE. I heard it from Qatar. I heard it from many other countries. A year ago, the United States of America was a dead country. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. It is the hottest. There's no question about it. In fact, if you go back a year ago, before the election, although once we had November 5th, we became hot because people got it. I would say November 5th was a time that we became really hot. But once you go back a couple of years, if I were in charge and the country was doing what they would, nobody was going to ask me to speak. Nobody asked Joe Biden to come up and speak, I guarantee you that. And if they did, he would have turned them down, I promise you. He didn't speak. He didn't speak, and he didn't speak well. But all of the countries in the Middle East, it could have, what we're doing now, it could have happened a long time ago, but it was strangled and set back almost irretrievably by the administrations of Barack Obama and then Joe Biden. It was, there was a hatred toward Israel. There was an absolute hatred. The setbacks really started when President Obama signed the Iran nuclear deal. This was a disaster for Israel, and it was a disaster for everyone. And I remember that Bibi Netanyahu came to the United States and worked so hard to try and get Obama not to do that deal. He worked so hard. But it was like talking to a wall. I remember him telling me it was like talking to a wall. They wanted to go with Iran. They chose Iran, frankly, over a lot of other good nations, but specifically Israel. And that was the beginning of a very bad period of time. You had Obama go out, and the Iran nuclear deal turned out to be a disaster. And by the way, I terminated the Iran nuclear deal, and I was very proud to do it. Yet even to Iran, whose regime has inflicted so much death on the Middle East, the hand of friendship and cooperation is open. I'm telling you, they want to make a deal. That's all I do in my life. I make deals. I'm good at it. I've always been good at it. And I know when they want. Even if they said, we don't want to make a deal, I can tell you they want to make a deal. All right, they do. They want to make a deal, and we're going to see if we can do something, because this is crazy what's happening, and we're not going to have this anymore. Neither the United States nor Israel bear the people of Iran any hostility. We merely want to live in peace. We don't want any looming threats over our heads, and we don't want to even think in terms of nuclear destruction. It's not going to happen, never will happen. There's nothing that would do more good for this part of the world than for Iran's leaders to renounce terror, stop threatening their neighbors, quit funding their militant proxies, and finally recognize Israel's right to existence. They have to do that. They have to do that. And to Iran, and as you know, this is not said out of weakness. There's no weakness. But I'm going to say this, that we are ready when you are, and it will be the best decision that Iran has ever made. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And they're good people. I know a lot of Iranians in the United States. They're good people, smart, hardworking people. They don't want to see what's happened to their country. The story of fierce Israeli resolve and triumph since October 7th should be proof to the entire world that those who seek to destroy this nation are doomed to bitter failure. The state of Israel is strong, and it will live and thrive forever. And that is why Israel will always remain a vital ally of the United States of America. Israelis share our values, field one of the world's most powerful militaries. You really do. You have an amazing, what a job you've done. And have one of the most innovative economies on earth. Those are just a few of the reasons why I'm proud to be the best friend that Israel has ever had. And they all say it in the White House. They all say it. I guess it's true because everybody says it, baby. You said it today. Thank you. But as president, I terminated the disastrous Iran nuclear deal, and ultimately I terminated Iran's nuclear program with things called B-2 bombers. It was swift, and it was accurate, and it was a military beauty. I authorized the spending of billions of dollars, which went to Israel's defense, as you know. And after years of broken promises from many other American presidents, you know that, they kept promising. I never understood it until I got there. There was a lot of pressure put on these presidents. It was put on me too, but I didn't yield to the pressure. But every president for decades said, we're going to do it. The difference is I kept my promise and officially recognized the capital of Israel and moved the American embassy to Jerusalem. Isn't that right, Miriam? Look at Miriam. She's back there. Stand up, Miriam. Stand up. Miriam and Sheldon would come into the office. They'd call me. He'd call me. I think they had more trips to the White House than anybody else I can think of. Look at her sitting there so innocently. She's got $60 billion in the bank, $60 billion. And I think she's saying no more. And she loves Israel, but she loves it, and they would come in, and her husband was a very aggressive man, but I loved him. He was a very aggressive, very supportive of me. And he'd call up, can I come over and see you? I say, Sheldon, I'm the president of the United States. It doesn't work that way. He'd come in, we would do. But they were very responsible for so much, including getting me thinking about Golan Heights, which is probably one of the greatest things to ever happen to Israel. Miriam, stand up, please. She really is. I mean, she loves this country. She loves this country. Her and her husband are so incredible. We miss him so dearly. But I actually asked her, I'm going to get her in trouble with this, but I actually asked her once, I said, so Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, the United States or Israel? She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say. We love you. Thank you, darling, for being here. That's a great honor. Great honor. She's a wonderful woman. She is a great woman. I've always stood for the people of this community, and I always will. I'll always be with you. I'm always going to be with you. I guess maybe something could happen to change my mind. Somebody that's really stupid gets into office and wants to do really bad things, but that's about it. We don't think we're going to have that happen. I hope we're not going to have that happen. And this man is a good man right here. These two men are good men right here. Hey, I have an idea. Mr. President, why don't you give him a pardon? Give him a pardon. Come on. By the way, that was not in the speech, as you probably know. But I happen to like this gentleman right over here, and it just seems to make so much sense. You know, whether we like it or not, this has been one of the greatest wartime presidents. This has been one of the greatest wartime presidents. And cigars and champagne, who the hell cares about that? All right, enough controversy for the day, right? Actually, I don't think it's very controversial. So, I see so popular. You are a very popular man. You know why? Because you know how to win. Over the past 2 years, I've met many of the families of the Israelis taken hostage and those that were taken hostage. Unbelievable. I've looked into their eyes. I've seen the worst nightmares of their suffering, but I've also seen something else, the beautiful love of the people, the love of people, frankly, that hold things together, the love that gives you the courage to carry on through thousands of years of persecution and repression and to emerge with the heart of David. It's the heart of David. It's that love that's defeated the enemies of civilization, built this incredible country and this unbelievable economy, and forged one of the great democracies of the world. That is why it's a true honor to stand here today and address this assembly in your ancient and eternal now capital, Jerusalem. I'm proud to have helped in that regard. This city and this nation stand as living proof that a much brighter future for this entire region is truly within our grasp. For thousands of years, Jerusalem has been a home to Christians, Jews, Muslims, and people of all ethnicities and creeds. This is the holy center of the world's three great Abrahamic faiths. I like that too. Adorned, it's the first time I've seen that word in a while. Adorned with their sacred sites and alive with their pilgrims and visitors from every corner of the globe. But here between the Western Wall, the Temple Mount, and the hill called Calvary, people of every faith and background live, work, pray, serve, and raise their families side by side, and they do it with love. This example is just one of the modern miracles that Israel has given to the world. And just in closing, the leaders in this chamber know better than anyone else the challenges of this harmony, and it's been easily won. No, it hasn't. It has not been. It's been so tough, but it has been, some say, a miracle. What you've done is a miracle. Look at your size. Look at your chances when it all started. And if you think about it, you are safer today, stronger today, and more respected today than at any time in the history of Israel. Think of it. People used to say it wouldn't exist. They don't say that anymore, do they? Yet if safety, security, and coexistence can thrive here in the winding alleys and ancient paths of Jerusalem, then surely peace and respect can flourish among the nations of the broader Middle East. The God who once dwelled among his people in this city still calls us, in the words of Scripture, the turn from evil and do good, to seek peace and pursue it. So he still whispers truth into the hills and knolls and valleys of his magnificent creation, and he still writes hope into the hearts of his children all over the world. And that is why even after 3,000 years of pain and conflict, the people of Israel have never given up from the threats of Zionism, from all sorts of threats. You want the promise of Zion. You want the promise of success and hope and love and God. And the people of America have never lost faith in the promise of a great and blessed future for all of us. From the very first day that modern Israel was founded, we have stood together through thick and thin of setbacks, and through victory and defeat, through glory and heartache. We have built industries together. We have made discoveries together. We have confronted evil together, and we have waged war together. And perhaps, most beautifully of all, we have made peace together. And this week, against all odds, we have done the impossible and brought our hostages home. So now we're going to forge a future that is worthy of our heritage. We're going to build a legacy that all the people of this region can be proud of. New bonds of friendship, cooperation, and commerce will join Tel Aviv to Dubai, Haifa to Beirut, Jerusalem to Damascus, and from Israel to Egypt, from Saudi Arabia to Qatar, from India to Pakistan, from Indonesia to Iraq, from Syria to Bahrain, Turkey to Jordan, the United Arab Emirates to Oman, and Armenia to Azerbaijan, another war that I just settled. We are going to have hope, harmony, opportunity, and happiness here in the spiritual and geographic center of the entire world. That's what you are. Israel, America, and all of the nations of the Middle East will soon be safer, stronger, greater, and more prosperous than ever before. And I want to thank you all once again for this exceptional honor. This has been truly an honor. It's seldom that a president is invited to do this. And I love Israel. I'm with you all the way. You will be bigger, better, stronger, and more loving than ever before. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. And God bless the Middle East. Thank you, everybody. Good luck. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And as we saw Trump just finishing up his very long and powerful speech at the Knesset, right before that, he welcomed the hostages home, the 20 living hostages, alongside Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. During his speech, it was mostly preaching to the choir to hear them sing. People were chanting Trump, but there was a moment where two members did speak up in some kind of protest. We couldn't really gather what they were saying, but they were very quickly removed. Trump even made a joke about it, saying that was quite efficient, but just so many really poignant moments from that speech.
Reports show that those two people who spoke up were holding signs saying "Recognize Palestine." As you mentioned, they were removed pretty quickly, and he got on with his speech. Very powerful words there, and we'll be tuning back in to more of what's happening there soon.
That's right. And indeed, a historic day in Israel with the hostages returned from Gaza. So much to discuss, and joining us now is Geopolitical Sphere is Dr. Keith Naughton. He's co-founder and principal of Silent Majority Strategies. Keith, we had brought you on initially to talk about China, and I do want to weave in a few questions about that. But first, I'd just like to get your initial reactions to all of the events coming out of Israel this morning.
Well, it's pretty impressive. I mean, I think you had to say since this war started by Hamas had begun, over 2 years ago, you had to wonder whether these hostages would ever be released alive, even up until the final moment. That's a completely untrustworthy group of people, terrorist organization. So, it's a believe it when you see it. So it's very impressive to have these hostages released. I'm surprised so many were still alive. I didn't think any of them would make it out. It's unfortunate that 28 did not. But it's a real credit to the president, what he was able to accomplish. I think it's going to be, it's going to be something that he'll be proud of for a long time. A lot of people will.
And I just want to get your view. Sometimes his style is referred to as transactional, but over his first term and now his second term, he's put in a lot of effort to build relationships with different partners in the Arab Muslim world, really leaning on those partnerships to secure a deal. Potentially for Hamas, the result would have been the same had he not brought in the Arab partners, but of course then the 20 hostages likely would not have survived. So I want to get your view on his consensus building with those partners like Egypt, like Qatar, like Turkey.
Well, I think the one challenge for the president is, he's very impatient, and it takes a lot of time to build these coalitions and to get these kind of deals made. And it's important to build partnerships. It's hard to go alone. The United States has had a lot of problems with untrustworthy partners in the past, so that's definitely something that I think he's attuned to. So I think from this process, I think maybe the president has added a dimension of patience to his negotiating style. There's something you said up front that I really can't stand, that criticism of transactionalism. Of course we are. Every country is. That's the whole point. The United States isn't the largest charity organization in the world. I mean, we are a democracy, and the president's supposed to represent the interests of the American people. And that involves transacting with the world stage to the benefit of this country. And when we engage in charitable efforts, that's just a bonus. So there's nothing insulting in any way about transactional. In fact, it's the whole point of being a democracy.
And of course, now as we speak, we're looking at this footage, people dancing in the streets. And he said they're not only dancing in the streets in Israel, but in places all around the world, places that you would not expect. And he credited a large portion of this success with Steve Witkoff. I'd like to get your comment on Steve Witkoff's style and ability to be a diplomat, having not come from that world, having been in business and in real estate. But Trump said he saw some qualities in him that would lend very well to deal-making and peacemaking in diplomacy. Your thoughts?
Well, if you can cut deals in New York real estate, I think you can cut deals anywhere in the world. So I think that's probably a smart dimension to have. I think the important thing when you're dealing internationally is having people who are tough negotiators, who have the interests of the United States and our allies in mind, and to know how to cut deals. And I think if you combine that with people with experience in the region, that's a very powerful thing. I don't think we've had that in the past. And one thing that Trump has made a point of since back in 2016 is we've done a very poor job of cutting good deals for the United States, particularly the Obama administration. They were one of the worst in American history. So I think having someone like Witkoff as part of your team makes a lot of sense. And I think he's, went up a learning curve, but I think he's had a great success here.
Yeah, and he told an anecdote jokingly about sending him to meet with Putin, thinking it would be a 30-minute meeting, and it was like a 4 to 5 hour meeting, and just saying that Witkoff has this uncanny ability to befriend people. And Trump said hopefully Russia would be the next deal, and certainly something that everybody is looking at closely, though today you have this moment of joy. But I want to dovetail to Russia and China, because it seemed like out of nowhere, China escalated this trade war with the U.S., basically saying even if the rare earths don't initially exist in China, that they wanted to put export controls. What do you think of the timing? It pretty much happened on the same day that this breakthrough with Israel and the Arab partners pressuring Hamas. Why would China pick that day to ultimately create this new trade escalation?
Well, they want to rain on his parade. Cannot be trusted. I'm not surprised at all that they would do this. There is no deal that you can cut with them, with the CCP, that will ever be held. Whenever they feel like violating a deal, they're going to do it. You've got no choice but to find ways to keep pressure on them. That's the only way to keep these deals going. I think China's been working, and Xi Jinping for the last 15 years, to become as self-sufficient as possible for their regime. And the more self-sufficient they are, the more that they're going to act this way. Under President Obama, the United States was completely asleep, allowed an enormous amount of technology to be stolen, did not prepare this country to be resilient in the case of any trade disruptions. Trump has started the process of making the country more independent. I actually think he needs to be more aggressive, and I think he needs to do more than just tariffs. He's got to have a more broad strategy. But no one should believe that any deal with China is going to last ever. That should be just a number one fact. So I wouldn't surprise at all.
Yeah, he used the word in his truth post. They were always laying in wait. So he was expecting them to potentially make moves, as you said, to sort of rain on the parade of what appears to be his intention to put out conflicts around the world. It seems like the China strategy is to engulf the U.S. in conflicts, potentially having to take their eye off the ball of the theater with Taiwan. How has peacemaking put more pressure on China, in your view?
Well, I think they are humiliated because they haven't been able to achieve anything in the Middle East. You know, there was a brief time where they allegedly brokered some agreement between the Saudis and the Iranians, but that was just like a piece of paper. That really didn't mean anything. They have no diplomatic heft like the president does. So I think it is embarrassing to them that they've got, no one's really interested in their opinion in the Middle East. They just want to sell their oil to China. So I think Xi Jinping wants to be on the world stage, but he's not really on the world stage because he doesn't have the gravitas of the president.
And then China being the major underwriter of Russia's war with Ukraine by being the largest purchaser of their oil, but by no means the only. Certainly India buying a lot, and even members of the NATO alliance, as Trump criticized, still buying some oil and gas. So as we finish up, Dr. Naughton, I just want to get your view on what the next steps could look like in managing that situation in the Russia-Ukraine war. Do we send in the Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine? How does Trump navigate that?
Well, yeah, and I wrote about this 2 years ago in the American Spectator. I mean, the Russians are never going to stop, or Putin won't, that's for sure. They're fighting a war exactly like the Russians have fought for 500 years. Their behavior hasn't changed. It never will change. I don't think this war is going to end until Putin has left. No Russian leader or czar has survived losing a war. Wars end when they win or when the leader who starts it leaves the stage. As far as the Tomahawks go, I don't think the president should be announcing these things. I mean, he shouldn't be publicly debating what to send into Ukraine. They need to do these things privately, because the problem is you humiliate Putin publicly when you ignored him. Biden did this all the time. He talked about sending Ukraine aid. The Russians would make a big deal about it. Then he'd send it anyway. Well, now you've humiliated the Russians. You've made them want to retaliate more against you. You sort of raise the temperature. If you're going to provide more weapons, more advanced weapons, you have to do it quietly to help the Ukrainians defend themselves. So I don't agree with that strategy at all. But I think in the end, it's very intractable. I think the best we can hope is to just sort of tamp down a little bit of the aggression and limit it to this war until Putin leaves the stage, and then there'll be an opportunity to make peace.
We appreciate you joining and sharing your insights with us on this historic morning. Dr. Keith Naughton, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to have those insights there from Dr. Naughton. As you mentioned, as you can see in this footage here, what a historic time we're observing. People out in the streets in Israel flying the American flag alongside the Israeli flag, and we've seen the American flag plastered up writ large on many buildings around Israel there as well, celebrating what is the first phase of hopefully a much more extensive peace deal in Gaza.
That's right. You bring up an important point. While it is a historic and celebratory day in Israel and around the world, potentially the harder part now comes in getting Hamas, while getting 2,000 of their own people released, many of them murderers committing acts of terror, to getting them to lay down their weapons, disarm, and allow the money to flow in from those Arab partners as Trump is, painting this vision in his speech to the Knesset of a very prosperous, rebuilt Gaza Strip.
That's it. And I think we just saw President Trump in the air departing to Egypt, where he will continue his historic trip there in the Middle East. As you mentioned, President Trump in his speech just earlier really hailing this as the beginning of the golden age of Israel and also the golden age of the Middle East. But he did say that getting to even this point was almost miraculous, that it was tough, was his words, so tough. And as we know, and as we've heard from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the opposition leader Yair Lapid, and also Trump just speaking all today to the Knesset, saying that so many pieces had to fall into place to make even this first phase come true or come to fruition.
Yeah, and he was certainly generous with his praise, lavishing praise on his own team. Huge praise for Steve Witkoff and his central role in this process. His own son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who he says was the original architect of the Abraham, or as he joked, the Avraham Accords, which he says it sounds better to say it in Hebrew, the Avraham Accords. And he says Jared Kushner loves Israel so much that his own daughter converted, and he had a laugh about that, that his own grandchildren are Jewish. But really just talking about Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, General Dan Kane, all playing pivotal roles. And as we heard from all of the speakers on the Israeli side, really a key moment was the striking the Fordo nuclear facility, which then began a new opportunity for Arab leaders to step forward now that the threat of Iranian sponsoring of Hezbollah and the Houthis, that real threat of having that nuclear weapon just very close to being activated. He said that they all said that was really a major turning point in this whole conflict over the last 2 years. And
the other Arab nations playing significant role in the negotiations this time, even though the deal is just between Israel and Hamas. We heard earlier President Trump during his speech to the Knesset calling on Iran, saying, "We're ready when you are." I assume he was saying to accept Israel for what it is and its sovereignty, and imploring Iran to recognize it and saying that will be the best decision for Iran. Promising basically prosperity for the entire Middle East if this can really be seen through to the end and Israel gets to just feel no threats there, which it has felt throughout the ages, really.
That's right. And, one of the interesting elements that came through in his speech was that the whole world was really criticizing the policy of Israel taking the fight into Gaza, which was Hamas's main stronghold, because of the casualties, because of the displacement of people, but that it was the only way to secure the release of the hostages was to bring the pressure directly on Hamas, and then from the outside, the diplomatic pressure, bringing the Israeli pressure on the ground, and then the diplomatic pressure where Qatar and Turkey saying, we're no longer going to give you this support, to put that pressure onto Hamas. Bibi or Benjamin Netanyahu clearly taking criticism in the UN just a month earlier for this campaign, but now Trump praising him for having the courage to do what he felt was the only way to get to this day today.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see how other nations not so close by react as the negotiations progress. As we know, and as Trump had noted, many leaders had begun to assert their positions on whether there should be a Palestinian state or not. But of course, the rest is potentially touch and go at the moment. But we do see that helicopter there potentially carrying the president. We've got much more coming up. President Trump set to take part in a Middle East peace ceremony following the peace plan agreement between Israel and Hamas.
And this is, of course, after Trump just gave this historic speech in front of the Knesset, that, of course, Israel's parliament earlier today, as well as the release of all the remaining living hostages by Hamas. We have a lot more. We're going to be covering this all day. Stay with us. We'll be right back after a short break.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I've felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers. He connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Here you're watching President Trump now signing the guest book at the Knesset. That was earlier today. He's in Jerusalem, and he's just departed Jerusalem, indeed, for Egypt. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other Israeli officials were watching on at that point. The president spent several seconds writing, then he held up what he wrote. It read, "This is my great honor, a great and beautiful day, a new beginning."
And the Knesset staff earlier handed out red baseball caps, as we just saw in the footage, in the style of the Make America Great Again caps, the MAGA caps, the words reading, "Trump, the Peace President." As Trump walked through the Knesset with Netanyahu and Speaker Ohana, news broke that all 20 living hostages had been freed.
Knesset Speaker Ohana and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the assembly in a special session convened in Trump's honor. Trump's speech followed theirs.
And before this, only 3 U.S. presidents have ever addressed the Israeli parliament. President Jimmy Carter in 1979, President Bill Clinton in 1994, and President George W. Bush in 2008. And the 20 living hostages were released to the IDF. The IDF confirmed that there are no more living hostages in captivity, and 4 of those bodies are expected to be released today, according to the Hostages and Missing Families Forum.
Here's Trump earlier today.
We gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope. After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. After so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity. This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. It's going to work together.
President Trump arrived in Israel to a warm and symbolic welcome earlier this morning as his historic Middle East peace mission enters a new phase.
That's right. His visit comes amid celebrations, dancing in the streets after hostages were released under the ceasefire that he helped to broker. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the hostage release.
A grateful nation displayed a massive sign thanking President Trump on the beach in Tel Aviv, which Air Force One saw as it approached Ben Gurion Airport. The president's plane was welcomed to Israeli airspace by an airport control tower.
Welcome to the State of Israel, Mr. President. Your visit carries deep meaning for our people in these times. Thank you for our friendship and the unbreakable bond between our nations. God bless America, God bless Israel, and the friendship between our peoples.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt shared a view aboard Air Force One as President Trump approached Israel, calling it a new dawn in the Middle East. Another view from the plane flying over the beach in front of the U.S. Embassy branch in Tel Aviv. A red carpet welcome awaited Trump, who walked with Prime Minister Netanyahu on the tarmac as live music played in the background. Trump's motorcade later departed Ben Gurion Airport en route to Jerusalem. The president spoke with reporters before departing for Israel, calling it an honor to be involved in something so momentous.
This is a very special event. They had 500,000 people yesterday and today in Israel, and also the Muslim and Arab countries are all cheering. Everybody's cheering at one time. That's never happened before.
Aboard Air Force One, the president said this is the first time when everybody is unified.
Because as you know, we're going to Egypt after Israel, and we're going to meet all of the leaders of the very powerful and big countries and very rich countries. And others, and they're all into this deal. Everybody's into it. It's never happened before.
Trump made it clear that the conflict was finished.
War is over. The war is over, okay? Do you understand that?
The president says cleaning up the ruins of the war in Gaza will begin immediately.
This is like a demolition site. Almost the entire site is. So you have to get rid of what you have there. You have structures that are very dangerous. They're falling down. If they haven't fallen, they're going to fall down of their own volition.
Trump says the Board of Peace, an international governing body, will be in place in Gaza very soon.
Everybody wants to be a part of it. I've had calls from all of the leaders of countries. They all want to be a part. I mean, the leaders themselves, they're not going to send somebody. They want to be a part of it.
Trump was asked whether this peace deal would help him get to heaven, a reference to an earlier statement he made.
I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven, but I've made life a lot better for a lot of people.
The Hamas terror group had earlier released the names of the hostages to be released under the first phase of a ceasefire agreement with Israel. The Israeli military says all 20 have already been released after 738 days in captivity in Gaza. They are being reunited today with their families. Crowds broke into cheers after an announcement that hostages had been released into the custody of the Red Cross. Emotional scenes as crowds in Hostages Square gathered to watch the release of hostages, thanking President Trump for his dedication to their release. Shock, jubilation, disbelief, and joy. Matan Engrest's family celebrates as he is released. Friends and family members of Israeli hostages Nimrod Cohen and Alan Ohel gathered at separate viewings to wait for their release from Hamas captivity today. Cohen, now 20, was a conscript when he was kidnapped by Hamas terrorists from his burning tank near the Israeli border with Gaza. 24-year-old Ohel, a pianist, was kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival. Alan was wounded by a grenade thrown into a bomb shelter where he had taken cover and has gone blind in one eye, according to his family. Israeli prison services also prepared for the release of Palestinian prisoners today as part of the peace deal. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Great report there from Daniel. Now joining us to talk about this historic day in the Middle East is Karen Shalom Levin, Executive Director of the Baltimore Zionist District. Good to have you with us today, Karen. As an Israeli American, you're in touch with people over there. What's your sense of people's reactions on the ground there?
I think it's overwhelming excitement. It was a hard night. It was for last night, obviously for us here in the United States. It was just holding your breath for an entire 24 hours of not knowing what to expect, not knowing if Hamas was going to change their minds, not knowing if actually 20 hostages were going to come home, not knowing what their condition was going to be. And it was an entire nation just holding their breath. And then this sigh of relief from an entire nation when the announcement was made that the 20 hostages were back on our soil, back on our land, and with our IDF forces.
Yeah, you make such a good point about the connection as well between the U.S. here as well. People here feeling it. Your organization aims to connect the community of Baltimore with Israel. How are people here in the U.S. reacting?
It's like I said, it's such a sigh of relief. I think that a lot of people feel like today is October 8th. There's something that goes around where every time it's October 7th, whether it's October 7th, November 7th, 2020, 2023, 2024, 2025, we always say it's still October 7th. Today is October 8th. It's finally this sigh of relief of it's finally October 8th. It's something that should have happened October 8th, 2023. And of course, we know that the battle is not over, the fight is not over. But for today, it feels like October 8th. Our hostages are home. Our people are home from the depths of hell. And we are taking this as a win. That is what the Jewish community, what the Jewish people are all about, is our people, our family. We needed their home, and our hearts would never have been full. We would never have been full as a nation without having our family home.
Now let's look a little closer at this next phase. Trump has forecast the ushering in of a golden age for Israel and for the Middle East. How possible is that vision that might come true in your hopes and in your sense of what's practical?
Listen, my hope is that it comes to fruition. I'm a realist. I grew up in Israel. And I have been seeing the same cycle of violence, of indoctrination, of what goes on in Gaza for many, many years. The terrorism on the Israeli people, the crossing the borders, and the bus bombings, and the bombings at restaurants. And when Trump spoke today and he said, the war is over, peace is here. I want to believe that. And just like I wanted to believe that the hostages were going to come home, I did believe that. And I'm so grateful for President Trump, for the IDF, for Bibi, for Jared Kushner, for Witkoff, for the administration, for everything that they did to bring our hostages home. And I do pray with everything inside me that we will see peace in the Middle East, as we've been saying for a very long time. And that is my hope, and that is my prayer, and I will keep wishing for that, and I will keep advocating for that, and I will keep fighting for that. So will our organization, and that is what we do, and we hope for the best.
So Karen, talk to us about the unique place of Israel in the Middle East and also to the U.S.
Israel to me is as they say, Jerusalem of gold. To me, it's the golden place in the Middle East. There is nowhere more beautiful. There's nowhere that you can be more free. There's nowhere that you can go and just say, I'm home. And the sights are incredible. You need to go see there to meet with the people, not just the Jewish people. Of course, they call it the Jewish homeland, but there are 2 million other people that live in Israel that are Muslims, that are Druze, that are Christian. And the society is the most coexistent society that one could ever travel to. And it's more than a land, more than a people. It's history. It's just an incredible place to go and to try and understand what you see on the media and on the social media. You need to go and see it for yourself and visit for yourself and understand that Israel is a holy place and is a mysterious place and is a historical place. And I would love for everybody to know that and to go see that for themselves.
I really hear your love for this nation, and just noting is, yeah, and also interesting to note here, President Trump in his speech to the Knesset today, just proclaiming that Israel will become even more loving, and to just call a nation loving is not something you hear every day, but I can see the love coming through for the people and for everything it stands for right here. And at the same time,
Israel is a place of love.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing is a celebration of the shared values between the two nations, the U.S. And Israel, and everybody else who's kind of signed on to this hope for peace there. But at the same time, in the U.S. and around the world, in the past 2 years, we have seen increased incidences of anti-Semitism and kind of like hate crimes driven by what might be seen as the conflict happening there in Gaza. Yes. What's your message for Americans at this time?
Yeah, listen, unfortunately, the past 2 years have taken a toll, not only on Israel with the war and with the constant bombings and with the constant hostility towards Israel, but in turn, that did take a tremendous effect on the Jewish people in the diaspora. It has given the opportunity for those who were hiding their very anti-Semitic views towards Jewish people, I would say for probably the past 80 years since the Holocaust, to now come out and freely express their views towards Jews and towards, as they like to call it, Zionists, and just express how they feel on streets, on college campuses. I have it right here in my neighborhood. Without really understanding who Jewish people are or who support Israel and the homeland for the Jewish people, which is what a Zionist is. I think it's gotten to a point where it's severely bad. Anti-Semitism is up by over 400% across the board. I think that the Jewish people, the Jewish community, our allies, we're going to have a lot of work to do to clean up the horrific anti-Semitism that has risen over the past 2 years as a result of the war in the Middle East. And it's nothing that the Jews have not fought before.
To that point, President Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, and others have noted the role of the surrounding Arab states in this particular phase of the deal, coming together, perhaps changing their stance, softening their stance. Some of them had been had been amenable to or cooperative with Hamas and thus supporting their operations in some way, directly or indirectly. But this potentially could be the start of something new. What do you see happening there in terms of the dynamics of the surrounding Arab nations and their attitudes toward Israel?
I haven't seen many statements from the Arab nations. I think it's really going to take the Arab nations coming together and really implementing something big within, if we're talking about within the Gaza Strip, it's going to have to start with education. The Gaza Strip and Hamas and the ideology is indoctrination from a very, very young age. I mean, you have very young kids walking around with guns and singing songs about, killing Jews at a very young age of 3 or 4. There was just videos yesterday, after the ceasefire obviously had already taken place, about, wanting to kill Jews, or now it's time to go back and claim Israel. So, even though there was a ceasefire, you see, Jewish people on one side and Israel celebrating their hostage, our people, our hostages coming home and dead bodies coming home. And on the other side, you see, Gazans wanting to still kill Jewish people and reclaim their land. So it's a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of work. And I do think that Arab nations are going to have to take a big part in this. I don't think that the Jewish people alone in the state of Israel are going to be able to do this.
Well, it's an honor to witness this day and to be able to share it with you and observe something truly historic taking place, regardless of what happens here on out. But we certainly hope that it only gets better. Thank you so much, Karen Shalom Levin. Good to speak with you.
Thank you.
And President Trump today will co-chair a summit in Egypt aimed at officially ending the war in Gaza. I had said earlier that he was on his way to Gaza, but he is just about to leave that he was on his way to Egypt, but he's just about to leave for Egypt now. Now, the meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh brings together more than 20 world leaders, among them British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. The summit is expected to focus on phase 2 of the Trump peace plan, setting up an international stabilization force for Gaza. Key questions remain: how large that force will be, what mandate it will have, and whether it will carry UN approval. For Israel, the priority is ensuring Hamas no longer poses a threat, while Palestinians look for guarantees of Israeli withdrawal and steady humanitarian access. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi will co-chair the summit with President Trump. And we'll go to a quick break now. Stay tuned because we'll be covering that event live here on NTD Good Morning. See you soon.
That first time seeing my son, I feel like my life did a 180. I was already trying to change my perspective of life and really just be a father figure that I never had. Being present is the most important part. I'm still growing every day, becoming a better version of myself, to be the better mirror for my son. I mean, he's just growing. He's becoming his own person. Man, first I saw him dance, bro, he brings the vibes, you know what I'm saying? He brings the party no matter what. He really a definition of like why he loves somebody. And I love him to the death of me.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight. Skylar, come here. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome back to NTD Good Morning. A historic day. Right now we're looking at the motorcade bringing President Trump to the airport in Israel, where he will next travel to Egypt, where he'll be joined by many world leaders from Germany, from England, and of course all of the Arab states, as they look to now implement the next stages. Now that the prisoners, the hostages have been released, the 20 living hostages have returned home safely to Israel.
Yes, and we heard Trump earlier today giving his speech to the Knesset, the Israeli parliament there, saying that numerous world leaders wanted to take part today and meet with him for that historic ceremony and meeting in Egypt.
That's right. And we'll take a listen to some of the quotes coming out of Trump's speech earlier today.
We gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope. After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. After so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity. This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. It's going to work together.
And joining us now to talk about the peace deal is Brian Leib. He's a foreign policy analyst and the CEO of Henry Public Relations. What a historic morning so far, obviously, with the time difference. You wake up and all of these things have unfolded. Your initial reactions?
Carrie, it's a beautiful day, I think, for all of us, and all of us as Americans should be very proud of our president and of the administration and everyone involved in bringing these hostages home, regardless of one's political opinions. And I know we're a country full of many of them, but this is a beautiful day for all of us to see these hostages come home and to know that it was because of American leadership and because of President Trump's leadership that helped make it happen. And I've been up since 3 a.m. I watched the speech live. I think that was, listen, I've heard a lot of President Trump's speeches, both in person and on TV. That will probably go down in the history books as one of his best speeches ever, from a strength perspective, from a compassion perspective. It was a great speech, and it's a truly amazing morning that we're waking up to right now.
Yeah, if you get the sound bites as we just played of President Trump's speech, or you watch the long form, it almost has a completely different feel, very graciously laying praise on many of the people in the room responsible for coming to that moment. I'd like you to comment a little bit on his words about Bibi, about Witkoff, about Kushner, and as well Marco Rubio.
I mean, he singled out a lot of people throughout that speech, and I think that's very much who President Trump is. That's maybe not what some of the media want people to think he is, but that's the kind of leader that President Trump is. There's a lot of talk, by the way, Carrie, about this Nobel Peace Prize. Can I tell you something? I don't think President Trump really even cares about the Nobel Peace Prize. I think it would be great if he got it, but I don't think he needs it, because I think at the end of the day, and he has said this many times, and I believe it, peace is the ultimate prize. And now we're in a position where we are on the cusp of really some long-lasting peace. And he shared the stage. He shared this moment with his son-in-law, with Jared Kushner, with Steve Witkoff, with Marco Rubio, with all of his people, because listen, it can't just be one person, that gets this done, whether it was on our side, the Trump administration, or Prime Minister Netanyahu and Ron Dermer and so many other people on the side. This took a real teamwork, a real team effort. And I think that's why we were able to get to this moment, that we're at today, where the hostages are now home. They're being reunited with their families. And now President Trump is going to Egypt to have what could be a massive Abraham Accord signing. I mean, time will tell with what happens very soon. But we are very much on the cusp of really a new dawn in the Middle East. It's because of President Trump and his partnership with Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yeah, one thing that President Trump mentioned specifically about himself and Netanyahu was the endurance and the perseverance through very sharp criticism on the military actions into Gaza City, the pressure campaign on Hamas. Of course, Trump then did an end around diplomatically with all of the Arab countries to put pressure on Hamas, not just militarily, but also diplomatically. I want to get your take, though, on that perseverance that it took. Just last month at the UN, it seemed like the entire world was against Israel, but they stayed the course and ultimately got the result that they were hoping for.
I mean, I think if we're being honest, I think a lot of the world still is against Israel, and they probably, always will be. That's kind of, been how it's been for a long time now. But you're right. It definitely took perseverance, and it took two strong leaders to stay the course. And there's been a lot of fake news out there, and a lot of fake headlines about how Trump and Bibi have had many falling outs, and they weren't talking to each other, and Trump was cursing at Bibi. None of that was true. And at the end of the day, these are two men that were deeply committed to bringing the hostages home, to ending this conflict, to creating a new day of peace in the Middle East. And I don't think this could have been possible with anyone else. The two of them working together, Carrie, with Trump and Netanyahu, it's a really special partnership that I don't think we've ever really seen in politics, at least that I've seen in my lifetime. So they were persistent, they were strong, and that's what got this done.
Trump is calling this the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East, kind of piggybacking off of his theme for peace through strength and his policy in America. I want to get your view on the next stage. The first point or two of a 20-point plan has been realized, but Trump has really done a lot of work with Qatar, with the United Arab Emirates, with the Abraham Accords. What does the potential for truly demilitarizing the West Bank and Gaza and going more toward a, what he would call like the golden age, something where, there's mass construction, there's thriving communities, there's economic opportunity and education for Palestinians?
Well, there's a lot to build on. The Abraham Accords was wildly successful, and I think President Trump even made a comment during his speech about, how throughout the last 2 years, the Abraham Accords have remained intact. The countries that were involved, like the UAE and Bahrain and Morocco and Sudan, they never severed ties with Israel and continued forward with the Abraham Accords. So I think that the groundwork has been laid for more normalization, and it definitely is the golden age. I mean, but we have to be honest with ourselves and speak the truth about the situation, and that none of this is going to be able to happen if Hamas is not disarmed. If the radical elements that are in the West Bank or anywhere else in the Middle East, if they're not disarmed, we're going to keep kind of going back to the well on this. So I think that we're finally at a point now where these countries are willing to come together. They're willing to make peace. And I'm watching the live shot now, and it looks like President Trump is coming back, and he's going to be on his way to Egypt. So, and I mean, the countries that he's assembled for this is really mind-boggling. So, again, the groundwork is there, Carrie, with the Abraham Accords, and now it's just time to build on top of that. And I think these two leaders, along with Arab leaders, I think they can get it done.
And I'm very excited to observe and talk about, this next phase. But I do want to go back to the Israeli speeches made thanking Trump for taking out the Fordo facility. There were many steps along the way to even have the opportunity to have this moment come to fruition. I want you to discuss the importance of taking out the Fordo facility.
Well, it's more than just that. I mean, the Fordo facility and the other Iranian nuclear sites, and also crippling a lot of the Iranian infrastructure. As the president said, that was very important. If the Iranian regime still had the resources that they've had for the last couple of years, it might not be possible to be at a point where we're at right now. If the Iranian regime was as strong as they were, perhaps Hamas, who, by the way, their main funder is the regime in Tehran, maybe they would have kept holding on and wouldn't have made any moves like they're making now. So I think the president's entirely correct. Eliminating the Iranian regime is a big thing, and it's hopefully going to create the runway now for a lot of these Arab countries. Who, by the way, the quiet part out loud, Carrie, is that the Israelis have had warm ties with a lot of these Arab countries for a long time now, but it's always been in the darkness, behind the scenes. Saudi Arabia is a perfect example of that. The Israelis and the Saudis have been cooperating for years together. So I think that now the runway is there, especially with the Iran regime neutered as they are, to really see this lasting peace take root.
Yeah, and as we're discussing this, we see President Trump about to board Air Force One, saying his parting words of appreciation to the Netanyahu family, getting set to go, as you said, join quite a panel of countries that he's put together in Egypt. What do you expect to happen today, particularly at these meetings?
I really don't know. I mean, it's such a new world that we're living in, where you have Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Azerbaijan and all these other Muslim countries that are all coming together for this peace summit. But I think one thing for sure, and I think President Trump previewed this a little bit in his speech, he is going to be calling on them to officially recognize the state of Israel and to normalize relations with the state of Israel. I think he very much wants to build on the Abraham Accords that were wildly successful. And that really is the best way, I think, for all these countries to come together, is to recognize that everyone has the right to exist and focus on ways that they can partner together, from intelligence sharing to business to commerce to trade, all of the above. So it's such a new moment in time where, President Trump going to Egypt with 20 plus countries, no one knows what's going to happen. But I think we can all be very confident that President Trump is going to be looking to call on these Arab countries to officially recognize Israel, lay down their arms, and make this lasting peace that we all hope can happen.
Yeah, when you think about, Trump referenced the extraordinary wealth that is in the Middle East. When you think of the thriving cities of Doha and Dubai, and how that wealth is just a drop in the bucket to what the total amount of wealth there is. What are the prospects of a rebuilt Gaza? What could that become?
I think everyone is on board to rebuild Gaza, but it goes back to a previous comment that I made, that none of this is going to be possible unless Hamas is removed and unless Hamas is disarmed. None of these Arab countries, in my opinion, are going to invest a single cent into Gaza, nor will we as the Americans invest any money if Hamas remains in any kind of leadership position. So that's really kind of the elephant in the room right now, and that's the next stage of the deal. We've all been laser focused on getting the hostages back, and that's amazing. And now we have to see, how Hamas disarms, whether it's peacefully or not. And I think that's kind of the elephant in the room right now, and what we all should be looking to see in terms of what happens next.
Yeah, how will they be disarmed? How will the PLA change its ways and no longer, it's reported that they pay the families of those who martyr into terrorist acts. So how does that change? Money alone, of course, doesn't solve that, because it's money that built all those tunnels underground instead of building schools and hospitals and all the things that a thriving democracy depends on. But it seems like this, if there ever was an opportunity to break the cycle, this appears to be that moment. Besides Trump and Egypt, who are the key players in your view to get to realize much of what Trump's 20-point plan is offering?
Well, I think the UAE and Saudi Arabia are going to play big roles. And I also want to shine a quick little spotlight on the country of Azerbaijan. I was just in Azerbaijan actually just last week for the first time ever. It's a Muslim majority country, but it's a very moderate country. And they play a very special role in supporting Israel and being a bridge between Israel and some of the Arab countries. So I think I think Azerbaijan could potentially play a really big role here in bringing potentially Turkey and maybe some other countries along here, and Turkey as well. I mean, Turkey's a big country, can play a really big role here. So there's a lot of different countries, Arab countries, that can really come together to make this happen. But I think we're going to see UAE, Saudi Arabia, also the Qataris as well. The Qataris are going to want to have a big seat at the table. So we'll see. It's going to be quite the moment here in a couple hours when President Trump is wheels down in Egypt for the next summit.
Indeed, and one unique characteristic of President Trump is, if you look at a country like Qatar, known to have hosted Hamas leadership, allowed them to live lavish lifestyles in their hotels and casinos, and then you think of a country like Turkey, where the leader there, someone who controversial, if nothing else, but Trump found a way to bring them into the fold and not sort of look at their faults, but look at the opportunities. How has his approach been different than previous leaders of the country, of America?
I think he's been successful because well before President Trump entered politics, he was a deal maker. And to be able to be a deal maker in New York City, of all places, sometimes you have to make compromises. Sometimes you're sitting across the table with other people that you really wouldn't want to be sitting across the table, but you have to make a deal. So I think President Trump brought that expertise into the first administration as the 45th president, and now in the 47th administration as well, just taking a different approach to things. When you try and shove a square peg into a round hole over and over and over again, you're going to get the same result. And I think what we saw with President Trump with the Abraham Accords is that he tried a different approach, and that approach worked. So you're going to see the same thing happen now. And at the end of the day, the guy's a deal maker. The guy's a relationship builder. He knows how to bring people together. He has a lot of skills, but I think probably one of his most powerful skills is relationship building and being able to bring people together.
Yeah, and as we see him just enter Air Force One, and now we see Jared Kushner and daughter Ivanka Trump boarding Air Force One, I want to reflect just a moment before we move on to what this day in Israel meant. We saw people holding, flags with Trump, reconfiguring the MAGA hat into a Trump and peace hat. People were highly divided in Israel about the way to achieve all their goals, which was security, but also some people were willing to give up some security guarantees just to get the hostages home. And to get both of those things, it seems like, with the exception of the two hecklers in the Knesset who were swiftly removed, a very unified Israel today. And what are your observations on that? And does that continue? It's politics are brutal everywhere. What does the future of Israel look like?
Politics, you're right, politics are brutal everywhere. I think that, this certainly is a moment for the Israeli people, regardless of their political affiliations, for all of them to come together and have a moment of unity. I think it's very similar, if I could draw a quick comparison, to how we as a country came together after the 9/11 attacks. There was so much unity throughout our country. I think you'll see a lot of that in Israel, but politics is politics, and at the end of the day, there's certain people inside of Israel that really do not like Netanyahu, and listen, we have the same thing here in America. But I think this is a joyous day. It's an amazing day. You know, earlier on a different network, I took this pin off. I've been wearing this pin on my lapel pin for 2 years now on national television and speaking engagements, and it was because of President Trump that I was finally able to take this pin off, because the hostages are home. So I think we should all be just very happy and very grateful that President Trump played such an amazing role, and that we as the American people also played such an amazing role to make this happen, to bring these hostages back together. It's a beautiful day, beautiful day.
Yeah, and on college campuses, there are all these divestment of Israel campaigns because of the war in Gaza, in Hollywood as well, and we sort of have come to a new place. Do you expect all the flights to return to Israel? Many of airlines, canceled their flights. One of the greatest technology centers and pharmaceutical centers, Israel, does with all those people in the military hopefully getting back into civilian life, what does relations and economics look like between the U.S. and Israel now that, as you've taken that pin off your own lapel, what comes next?
Well, I think it's going to continue to be strong. I mean, relations from all aspects between the U.S. and Israel have remained very strong, and they're going to keep getting stronger. So it's a moment I think for all of us as Americans and Israelis to just really come together and celebrate what's happening. And the nonsense that's been happening on our college campuses, let's be honest, it's not going to stop anytime soon. Anti-Semitism is one of the world's oldest hatreds, and it's always been there. So I don't think that's going away anytime soon. But what is happening now is there is a peace deal that has happened, and hopefully much more to come. And we should all be very happy and looking forward with an open mind to what happens in the days and weeks to come here.
Well, Brian, we're sharing your joy. We appreciate you sharing time with us on this historic day. Great to speak with you, Brian Ladd.
Thanks so much, Carrie. Have a great day.
Great to have those insights there. And we are looking now live at Benjamin Netanyahu on the tarmac in Israel at the airport, Ben Gurion Airport, just as President Trump and his entourage have boarded the plane. And of course, President Trump is on his way to Egypt right now, where he will meet with other world leaders. Netanyahu is staying for a national holiday in Israel.
Truly a welcoming. You see the red carpet leading right up to Air Force One. People were yelling his name both in the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, and on the streets, thanking Trump for bringing the hostages home. And now he travels to Egypt, as you said, to try to carry forth the next stages and points of his 20-point plan, which of course is a demilitarization of Hamas and the beginning of rebuilding what has been destroyed in this campaign to bring the hostages home.
This speaks to something that you had just covered with your interviewee, Brian Ladd, just now about the Arab countries that are needed for the next phase of this peace agenda. And he was noting that Arab countries on the whole are likely not to want to invest in rebuilding Gaza unless Hamas is completely disarmed. And that's one of the key sticking points that they're still working through. But many people have wondered whether there may be a kind of second Abraham Accords, which of course started the process of normalizing Israel's relations with Arab nations.
That's right. And CNN was reporting that those who were arrested for violent crimes, terrorism, murder, that are being released are not being released to Palestine territories, not to Gaza, not to the West Bank. They're going to be deported to Egypt, and there will be a different fate for them rather than those who were just, non-violent offenders who had been picked up. So the prisoner swaps are underway. 2,000 are being released from Israeli jails for just 20 Israeli hostages, as well as the 25, unfortunately, dead bodies that await their proper respects and burial.
And I believe the estimate is around 250 of those are the prisoners with serious convictions, although without knowing, of course, the convictions of the others who've been detained, making up that 2,000.
So right now we're going to jump to a quick break, but we're going to be back. We're going to be covering this all day. President Trump heading to Egypt, where the summit is expected to take place. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
Hey, boss. Okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
I said I'm fine.
Since I was little, it was only like me and my parents. You think you created family out of characters? Yeah, of course. I'm gonna take that and make it into a song.
Me the bed, see you in the morning. With the frosted Superman, but it wasn't on it. And we lost it. In my head, in my head, in my head. Where you at on the way out? In my head, in my head, in my head.
Hey, son.
Hey, Pop.
You can talk to me.
It's been really, really hard for me.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. Thanks for staying with us on this historic morning. As you can see, there is Air Force One in Israel at Ben Gurion Airport. President Trump, after delivering quite a historic speech to a unified Knesset there where they were cheering his name because of the release of all 20 hostages, all brought out alive. Now
There
he's going
was
to be
some dissent.
Yes, two people
pretty
were
minor.
removed, indeed,
Yeah.
yeah. And of course, now heading over to Egypt, where much of the world's leaders are gathered from Europe, from the Arab states, where they'll look to implement the next stages of Trump's 20-point plan.
That's it. And we will be speaking next with Rabbi Yaakov Menken, Executive Vice President of the Coalition for Jewish Values, all about this historic day today Rabbi, good to see you. Many people are hoping this deal might usher in a new era in the Middle East, as President Trump and so many others have stated. What's your hope for the people of Israel and of Gaza?
Well, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. It obviously, this is Israel is a democratic country that has been praying for peace. That's all they want, is to have peace. And sadly, there's been a force on the other side whose priority is to kill Jews. Sadly, right now, you cannot find amongst the Palestinians, there is no peace movement. There are no, what is the name of the Palestinian peace movement? Find me a potential government for the so-called Palestinian Authority that does not at least support the families of terrorists. There's no such thing. It's either the Palestinian Authority, which has pay to slay, or you have Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. All of these organizations dedicated to eradicating the state of Israel and killing the Jews. That's the problem that we have right now. And the question is what the president will really be able to do now in Sharm el-Sheikh to really change, to move that thing in a different direction. Obviously, the UAE, the potential with the Saudis, Bahrain, these are countries where they really have turned a corner. Azerbaijan, the moderate Muslim country that Mr. Leib mentioned a few minutes ago, these are the countries that are showing a different model. And there is obviously potential, there's obviously hope that there should finally be peace in the region.
To that point, President Trump also this morning and in recent speeches has mentioned Iran specifically, of course, the bombing of Fordo being a big part of weakening the regime there. But the regime itself has indicated that it so far supports this phase of the agreement. Do you see a change with Iran, which has been such a big sponsor of Hamas?
Not over the long term. I think short term, they're realizing which way the wind is blowing and they kind of have to get on board. One thing about Trump, he knows about peace through strength. Appeasement, the Neville Chamberlain method, does not bring peace. Biden and Kamala Harris threatening Israel and saying, you're the guys who need to do more. What are you talking about? The Israelis were always saying, we are in favor of peace. The moment that Hamas lets the hostages go, there's going to be silence and peace in the region. Now the region is utterly destroyed, and enemies of the Jewish people are pointing fingers, of course, at Israel. That's ridiculous. This is all about Hamas. This is all about terrorism, and pressure had to be brought to bear upon the terrorists. The supposed victims of genocide, the only time in world history that the supposed victims of genocide were the ones who had to be dragged to the negotiating table. Please, grow up. This is about good versus evil, and it's clear that Hamas and now Iran are realizing which way the wind was blowing, and they didn't have much choice.
So do you see this next phase that they're trying to forge after today's celebrations obviously will continue, but the next phase must begin? Will it be more of a pragmatic step rather than, ideological realignment within the Middle East, which has been so fraught for so long?
Sadly, I don't think the next step is as peaceful as people are imagining. Oh, the war is over. Oh, everybody has come home. Yeah, that's great. But Hamas is now solidifying and consolidating its power. And that is a huge problem. The Hamas cannot be permitted to take over Gaza once again. Because they've declared quite proudly that they're about to go do another October 7th if given another opportunity to do so. So there has to be something better ahead. And for that to happen, Hamas has to no longer be in power. I don't know if you've seen the video, but sadly, there's footage coming out of Gaza right now of Hamas murdering, firing their pistols at point blank range at people who were dissidents, at people who wanted anything else. Obviously those other people are fighting back. They're fighting against Hamas. They killed a guy who had like faked. He was called Mr. Fafo because he had he had staged his own death 20 times during the conflict. And now he actually was killed, and he was killed by somebody who wasn't Hamas. So listen to the left in America, and they're telling you, oh, that was an Israeli-backed gang that killed him. No, excuse me, it was anybody who wasn't Hamas who killed him. And it's a bunch of, sadly, the Arab mobs are still functioning today as they were in 1929. It has nothing to do with the state of Israel. Go look at Iraq, go look at Syria. This is the Arab world needs to gain a more civilized model. And you see that happening in the UAE, in Bahrain, and now in Saudi Arabia. There's a future potential here. But for that to happen, Hamas has to be gone.
And what do you think has changed in the UAE and those nations that you say have been becoming more civil? Because people have been calling for, and Trump has been speaking about forecasting, changing Gaza through education. As you mentioned, there's a lot of vitriol there towards Jewish people, whether they're Hamas or not. Just on the ground, there's that level of culture happening within the Gaza Strip. What do you think it will take, and what do you think has forged that change in other Arab nations?
Well, if you look at the UAE and Bahrain, for example, they were not educating children through primary school that the Jews were their enemy, that they had to seek the death of Jews, that martyrdom was their goal. That is absolutely what the education system has looked like in Palestinian-controlled territories, whether than Judea, Samaria, or Gaza. Those territories, people were being taught from birth to hate Jews. There has to be a denazification of Gaza. These people have to desire life, desire economic well-being. Fine, desire religion, desire religious advancement, but don't believe that that advancement will be accomplished through killing Jews. That's what the children there, sadly, have been taught to believe. There are schools there named, they don't name schools after scientists. They don't name schools after great politicians. They name schools based upon how many people that terrorist has murdered. That's a horrible way to go forward. That's not the path to peace. The question is now, will the people who take control in Gaza actually educate children to desire economics and peace and benefit and going forward? And by the way, that requires they do a better job than American universities.
And I do want to come back to the aspect of the way Americans are seeing the war in Gaza. But you mentioned here about the transition period, hopefully, that's coming in Gaza. It looks like it's going to involve the surrounding Arab nations, and some of those leaders will perhaps be signing on to something today. We'll be looking for that. But considering the level of resistance that we're expecting from Hamas to being disarmed and the potentially ensuing crisis and violence that may come with that effort, what would be in it for those Arab nations to participate in that? Would they be required to be on board with that? Do you think some of them would pull out, seeing as they have not supported on the whole Israel's efforts so far?
You know, that's a really good question. And it's obviously going to be really difficult for a country like Qatar that has been trying to make nice with the United States at the same time that they were hosting Hamas leaders in five-star hotels. This is, an obvious problem that they will have to deal with if they want to be accepted as a partner in the peace. But to have that peace, Hamas has to be eradicated. They have to support that. And it's amazing to me. I mean, obviously, it was only thanks to, hostile countries towards Israel, like Qatar and Turkey, were the ones who were able to get Hamas to come to the table and say, look, you're going to be out on your own. You have no support. Well, now Hamas is consolidating power. What will Turkey and Qatar do now? I think that's really an open question, and it says a lot. I mean, I think it's amazing that Trump is going right now to Sharm el-Sheikh to get a peace agreement signed. I mean, they're moving so fast. Tonight is a holy Jewish holiday. In fact, you know, in Israel, this is the holiday that starts tonight is Simchat Torah because of the interplay between the Jewish and American or Christian calendars. This is the same. This is October 7th. This is Simchat Torah when, you know, in great respect for religion, by the way, as typical, the terrorists chose a holy day of the Jews to attack the Jews. And this is the day, you know, of their release. This is a remarkable turn of events. It's really turning things around. God willing, this will go forward. But it really shows, you know, how much of a difficult time it's going to be because these terrorists, they don't want to give up on their terrorism. This is what they're about. They want to do another October 7th given the opportunity. And now it's about, will the Arab states make sure they never have that opportunity?
And we'll be certainly watching that all closely. Thank you so much for your insights today. It's been a real eye-opener, and I wish you very well on this holiday.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
And you.
Yeah, fascinating point. Certainly the next phase, as he says, Hamas, with the pullback of the IDF, Hamas having this moment to, establish their control on that society for the time being. Some violence is being reported, as he mentioned, but there's also violence being reported against Hamas supporters. So things are in a moment of flux, and hopefully what comes out of these meetings in Egypt will provide a path towards at least stability. Yeah. The food flow is already starting. The aid is going in, making sure that aid doesn't get hijacked by terrorists and it gets distributed properly. All questions that everybody is asking.
Those will be some key indicators as to the state of things, as to whether the aid can really reach the people. Now, you're looking at a live feed of what looks to be the setup in Egypt of where we're expecting President Trump to be speaking soon. He's on his way there now, flying from Israel, where he was speaking with the Knesset, the Israeli parliament.
He's hours late. I mean, he's at least 4 hours behind.
It went long.
He made jokes during his speech at the Knesset that everybody gave such beautiful but long speeches that he hopes anybody is left for him when he arrives at Egypt. Of course, they're very celebratory because this morning Hamas released the 20 hostages. We showed some of that footage earlier, and people celebrating in the streets, celebrating in the Knesset. Israel has begun its process of releasing all of its captives as well, over 2,000.
And still waiting for the remains of the hostages who were murdered, no longer living, but Israelis say they need their bodies back in order to properly grieve and move on. But we are looking here at some of those living hostages being returned.
Yeah, this was earlier this morning, of course, returned first thing the time that we woke up. This had already taken place here on the East Coast, and they were given from Hamas to the Red Cross, from the Red Cross to the IDF, and then, of course, reunited with their families, undergoing a significant medical checkups at the hospitals.
This footage is showing them arriving at the hospitals. Many of them, I'm sure, will be emaciated, will have much trauma that they'll need to process, but at least they're back in safe hands.
And it was really, as Rabbi Menken mentioned, as Brian Lieb mentioned, really a two-court press on Hamas that resulted in this moment of opportunity. It was the military pressure from Israel and then the diplomatic pressure. And as Rabbi Menken mentioned, when the friendliest countries to Hamas said, no more, we can no longer support you at this moment, that being Turkey and Qatar, I think Hamas realized that they really had no other cards to play at that point, and resulted in the hostage release.
Yeah, we heard so many insights, and I'm sure there will be more to come, but during Trump's speech to the Knesset, he outlined, he pointed to the fact that there were so many elements that had to fall into place. It was Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, I believe, before him saying that Trump's ability to build relationships. And then Trump also went on to point out that his main negotiator was also stellar at building those relationships.
That's right.
And that's what really brought this through as well. So I'm sure history will be examining this for many years to come.
And ultimately, people are motivated by their incentives, right? And now that they're, because of his first term with the Abraham Accords, where you have Bahrain and other countries showing that you can benefit economically by not being against Israel and instead making peace and having economic ties and the ability to share intelligence, that good can come from that. And that's ultimately what needs to happen is the incentive structures have to change. Certainly for Hamas leadership, their incentive structure changed dramatically, which left them no other choice but to release the hostages.
That's right. And so we're actually looking forward to seeing what's next, which is the meeting in Egypt, where we're watching now people gathering to observe President Trump meeting with world leaders. We saw so many flags flying in that room where they will be meeting from all around the world, really.
That's right, yeah. The leaders of Germany, the UK, all of the Arab nations, they're all gathered. They're all waiting for President Trump to arrive. And we're going to be covering that live as it comes available. For now, we're going to jump to a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with much more.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges.
So Ariel, we made this here just for you. It has notes from all the people that are here. Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. How did I get here?
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
We are taught you don't talk about your problems with nobody because you could get in trouble. And I've been through a lot. Anxiety, depression, sexual assault. When I decided to get help, my life changed. And the mental health box, that was one of the big tools. Accepting help means that we are allowing somebody to bless our life. It's freeing. We got stronger together. Love your mind.
Thanks for staying with us on this historic morning. Of course, we're looking at a live shot of where President Trump will be arriving in Egypt shortly.
That's it. He's on his way there right now, but earlier in the day, he gave a speech to the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, and also Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke. He actually awarded President Trump the Israel Award, which was the first non-Israeli to receive that for this first phase of the peace deal. But we're going to be covering this throughout the day. There's much more to come. We're expecting, as you mentioned, multiple world leaders to show up for a peace ceremony and perhaps more developments.
That's right. Yeah, we started NTD Good Morning early. We're ending late. We're going to leave you with some highlights of Trump's speech earlier this morning. But for now, I'm going to sign off. I'm Carrie Dunstan.
And I'm Stephanie Cox. See you soon.
Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, esteemed members of the Knesset and cherished citizens of Israel, we gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity. This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death, and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. I want to express my gratitude to a man of exceptional courage and patriotism, whose partnership did so much to make this momentous day possible. You know who I'm talking about. There's only one, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Baby, please stand up. And he is not easy, I want to tell you. He's not the easiest guy to deal with, but that's what makes him great. That's what makes him great. Thank you very much, baby. Great job. And let me also convey my tremendous appreciation for all of the nations of the Arab and Muslim world that came together to press Hamas to set the hostages free and to send them home. We had a lot of help. We had a lot of help from a lot of people that you wouldn't suspect, and I want to thank them very much for that. It's an incredible triumph for Israel and the world to have all of these nations working together as partners in peace. And it's pretty unusual for you to see that, but it happened in this case. This was a very unusual point in time, a brilliant point in time. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. It's going to work together. I'd like to thank several great American patriots for their invaluable help in getting something done that almost everyone thought was absolutely impossible. We were wasting our time. So many people said, "You're just wasting your time." But we weren't, because we had talented people working with us, and we had people that loved your country, and frankly, people that loved the region. They loved the Middle East. I want to thank my friend Steve Witkoff. You know, Steve was chosen by me. He never did this before, but I knew him as a few things. He was a great businessman, but I know a lot of great businessmen, to be honest with you. He had tremendous negotiating skills, but I know a lot of people that negotiate pretty well, although it is an art. But there are people that can negotiate pretty well. But most importantly with Steve, he's just a great guy. Everybody loved him. Everybody. I mean, I know some negotiators that are so good, but you wouldn't have had peace in the Middle East. It would be in World War III right now with some of these guys. Everybody loves Steve, and they respect him, and they somehow can relate to him. I've known him for many years, and I've seen it over and over again.
להוציא את חבר הכנסת עודה, להוציא אותו מהאולם, להוציא אותו מיד, החוצה, החוצה, החוצה. להוציא גם את חבר הכנסת כסיף, להוציא את חבר הכנסת כסיף מהאולם, להוציא אותם מיד. Sorry for that, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Please.
That was very efficient. So back to Steve. He's But I tell one story because he was so involved, and then we called in Jared. We need that brain on occasion. We got to get Jared in here. We got to get a certain group of people. But Steve started this all by himself. I call him Henry Kissinger, who doesn't leak. Okay? Henry is a big leaker. He leaked. Steve doesn't leak. Steve just wants to get the job done. He wants to do what's right. But I'll give you just a quick story because, as you know, he's working on the war with Russia and Ukraine, a war that would have never happened if I were president. A shame. 7,000 young soldiers a week are being killed. More than that this last week. It's a shame. It should have never happened. But it did happen, and we won the race, and I took over this horrible war that's been raging, and I thought it would be easily settled. I thought it was a hell of a lot easier than doing what we just did very successfully with Israel and a lot of other people. But this came first, and we'll get that one. But I set up a meeting for him to meet with President Putin, thinking it would be a 15 or a 20-minute meeting. Steve had no idea about Russia, had no idea about Putin too much, didn't know too much about politics, wasn't that interested. He was really good at real estate, but he had that quality that I was looking for, and I didn't see it around in too many ways. And I set up the meeting with Putin, and I called. I said, is Steve finished yet? That was about a half an hour into the meeting. No, sir, he's not. He's still inside. This is in Moscow. I said, well, how's he doing? I don't know, sir. He's still inside. I called up an hour later. Let me speak to Steve. Sir, he's still with Putin. he's with President Putin. I said, wow, that's a long meeting, 1 hour. I called up an hour later, he was still with Putin. 3 hours later, he was still with Putin. 4 hours later, he started to get the word that he was going to be coming out soon. And in 5 hours, he came out. I said, what the hell were you talking about for 5 hours? And he says, just a lot of interesting things. We're talking about a lot of interesting things, including what he went in there for, but you can't talk about it for 5. You can talk about it for a certain period of time, and you know what you're getting. But that's a talent. That's a talent where you can do that. Most people I'd send in, number one, they wouldn't be accepted. Number two, if they were the meeting would last 5 minutes. And that's what happens with Steve. Everybody loves him. They love him on this side. They love him on the other side. And he really is. He's a great negotiator because he's a great guy. So thank you very much, Steve. Very much. And let me also give a very special thanks to someone who truly loves Israel. In fact, loves it so much that my daughter converted. My daughter converted. I didn't know this was going to happen. And Ivanka's here. And Bibi, you do know this was not in the cards for me. You understand that. And she is so happy, and they are so happy. At least I think they're happy. If they're not, we have a big story, right? No, they have a great marriage, and they get along great. They're best friends. They have a very special relationship. But Jared has been so helpful. He really did something very special. He established the Abraham Accords with a group of very wonderful people. I like calling it the Avraham Accords because people that, what? Avraham. It's so cool. It's so much sort of nicer, you know, the Abraham versus the Avraham. I just don't want to sound too sanctimonious when I do it, so, you know, I sort of split it up. This way we keep everybody happy. But we have some very great talent, and they have no excuses for anything that's taken place because we had some unbelievably good people working on this. And then you're going to add a man named Marco Rubio, who is also here. That's right. And I have a prediction that Marco will go down, I mean this, as the greatest Secretary of State in the history of the United States. I believe that. I believe it. And he and I, you know, we really fought it out. You remember, he was tough. He was nasty. Who the hell thought this was going to happen, Marco, right? And now I'm saying he's going to go down as the greatest. He will. He was always smart.